What is up, everybody? It is your boy Josh or Zero here, bringing you all a brand new episode of the Gears Cast. Welcome, everyone, to the Gears Cast, the best Gears of War podcast here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, obviously this is a Gears of War type of weekend, and I felt like what better way to really not only like kick off this weekend, this beta weekend, but to get an absolute legend from the Gears of War universe on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce someone to all of you, and some of you are going to be very accustomed to her work, especially if you are engulfed, entrenched in the Gears of War universe. But she has written not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 Gears of War novels. She was the lead writer of Gears of War 3. Ladies and gentlemen, not only the novels, but she has helped with the games, the novels, the comics. This is the #1 New York Times bestselling author. It is Karen Travis. What's up, Karen?
Well, that's the best introduction I've had in my life. Thank you very much, Josh. Lovely to be here and lovely to be talking
Yes.
to fellow gearheads, shall we say, because I make no secret of the fact that Gears is dear to my heart and is the only IP I will come out of my seclusion as an indie for. And I'm so glad to see it back. I
Oh, my.
can't tell you how glad I am.
Karen, I want to, but before we really get into this thing, I want to, on behalf of the entire Gears of War community, all of us, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, the bottom of the entire community's hearts. Thank you for everything that you did and have, continued to do in terms of, answering questions and things of that nature. I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done for Gears of War.
You're very welcome, and I'd just like to thank Gears fans everywhere. You are the best fans out there. You have always been unfailingly lovely to me, patient. I mean, I sort of talk to Gears fans during the week because I still get emails from people even before E-Day, and I can honestly say that there's always. Let me be perfectly frank, because I'm going to be outspoken tonight, especially because it's live and no one can stop me. um,
Yeah.
uh, every every fandom has its lunatic fringe, which is a problem. I can swear with my hand on my heart, there is no lunatic fringe in Gears. You've all been absolutely golden, and I am grateful to you. And you've made me feel that I'm welcome, and I love that. Thank you.
No, I mean, it has been it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I want to welcome everyone who is watching, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. And I've got a couple people in the chat, Karen, just saying that you're a little bit quiet. Maybe if you could lean
Right,
into
okay.
the microphone a little bit more, if possible. But
Yeah. It's just the
I
headset, unfortunately, so I'm bending a bit. Hang on, I wonder if I can put my volume up. Talk amongst yourselves.
yeah, of
Also,
course.
I actually am not seeing the chat or anything, so I'm not seeing any visuals here.
Yeah,
So let's
it's
have a
yeah,
go.
so it's on yeah, so it's on the, if you go to the YouTube channel and you just go to live, you'll see us live here, and the live chat there, they are going, man. Yeah. That being said, I want to welcome all of you. If you are watching this live on YouTube or on Twitch, I love you guys, and I want to say thank you so much for being here, guys. You're the reason that things like this are possible. It's because of you, and you are Gears of War, and I absolutely love all of you. And I will also say this: whether you're watching it live or as a VOD, guys, Karen is amazing when it comes to just responding to people on, whether it is on social media and things of that nature. You guys can check her out at Karen Travis on social media, on X, and things of that nature. So with that being said, everybody, um, I want to get into kind of our first topic here, Karen. And the first thing I want to kind of mention for those the people out there who are not necessarily maybe not as accustomed to the to your work and your story specifically, I wanted to give you some time here to explain, like, who are you today and how did all of this start for you from the beginning to now? Can you? I think I might have
Right, can you
lost.
hear me
I
now?
can hear you now. Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
excellent. Yeah, sorry, I just got some amazing noises, but I couldn't hear you, so I'm really sorry if I missed anything.
Yeah,
What
no,
what
it's
was what were the questions? Let's just
yeah.
gather
Let's
ourselves
let's
up
let's
and
let's
start
start.
again.
Yeah, let me start over. Okay. So what I wanted to start with here, Karen, is your story and how we got here. So, like, I know a lot of people know the novels, but the
Yeah.
person behind them and how you got here, um how, like, what is that, process been like of, where you are, like who you are today versus, growing up, and like where you from and all of those different things, to, that this unbelievable journey that you've been on.
Hmm.
I want to give you some time to explain to everybody, all of those
Right.
things.
Okay. I suppose that the most interesting place to start is really when I started working, and I actually began my life as an advertising copywriter. But I'm all better now. So I had a brief time at that. Then I went back and retrained as a journalist, which is what I always wanted to do. And I was a news journalist for a long, long time, newspapers and TV. Uh, and then worked for various TV stations. And let's see, I'm trying to remember where I went next. Did I work for the police then? I also worked for the cops doing PR. that was an education, let me tell you. But in terms of fiction, I did not plan to be a novelist, and it was not my idea. Uh, I, excuse me a second. Oh, dear me.
No, you're all
Sorry,
good.
that's age talking. Um, it wasn't my idea. Uh, when it was suggested to me by someone who knew better about careers, I thought, how hard can it be? So I gave it a shot. The situation I was in, which shaped all the decisions I made, which are not necessarily the best decisions in the world I've ever made, I ended up, as many journalists do, doing what I'll call spin doctoring, political PR. And I'm not someone who quits easily. When it comes to flogging dead horses, I will actually try and flog fossils of horses, tell them they just got to get up. I'm not good at knowing when I'm beaten. But I did finally realize with this job that there was nothing I could do to change the culture of the organization. And that if I wanted to save my immortal soul, I should get out and try and clean my karma up. I was desperate to go. I was commuting 160 miles a day as well. So I ended up on I was on one of these residential management courses that they'd send us on occasionally, and on one of them, I met the guy who changed my life. No, no, we didn't get married. Nothing like that. Part of the course was that you could have a few hours with one of the best HR people in the business from Coots Bank. Again, not an organisation I deal with because I'm too poor to deal with them. But they had a very well-regarded personnel department in terms of management coaching, and they would hire them out to organisations. And this guy was called Malcolm McGreevy, and we all had sessions with him. And I'd already decided during that last bit of the course that I could not do this any longer. I wanted to leave this job like urgently. And I said to him, um, I don't want to waste your time. I'm out of here as soon as I find another job. Give these few hours that are budgeted for to someone else who's going to stay in the industry. And he said, no, 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 no. He said it's perfectly valid to work out what you're going to do next, even if it's not here. So this extremely patient man sat down with me and he went through all my career. Uh, I'd I've been a defence correspondent as well. That is a relevant bit. I mean, I've done an awful lot as a journalist, but I was a defence correspondent for a while, and that was my
Hmm.
main area of interest. It wasn't one I could really go back to because people were cutting back on defence coverage because the cuts had come in with defence. And poor old Malcolm McGreevy, and I mention his name because if anyone knows him or if by some extraordinary chance he hears this, I just want to say thank you, mate. You changed my life. Anyway, he
Wow.
patiently went through all my skills and competencies. He knew what he was doing. I mean, he's not like some school careers officer that hasn't got a clue what they're actually telling kids to do. He's dealing with a manager on a good salary, and he's giving you quality advice. And he went through all these things, and we ruled out all the jobs I was going to go back to. I wouldn't go back to. And then he said, "Well, what do you do for hobbies?" And of course, being an old style journalists are not journalists in my generation are not like what you see in legacy media today. We were very different. We were job obsessed, so my hobbies are not going to be something I can monetize. And he was really trying hard. And he suddenly said, "Have you ever thought of writing fiction?" He said, "Because you've got these competencies and those skills that you've learned. It's got, you can run a budget, you understand marketing, you understand the disciplines of working in publishing, deadlines, clean copy. You've got special areas of expertise. Have you ever thought of it?" And I thought, good grief. No, I hadn't thought of it. Okay, I'll give it a go. He said, do a business plan and see where excuse me and see where you get to. And I said, fine. So I treated it like a business because I got
Hmm.
no emotional
Wow.
investment. I mean, a lot of people who want to be a writer, it's their be all and end all. It is their soul. I hadn't got to that stage, and like most journalists, I'm pretty thick skinned. So you know, I'm not easily wounded if I don't achieve ambitions or if people don't like what I do. It doesn't bother me. I just carry on blindly. So I did my research and I worked out why people buy certain books and what they like. And it's basically series where they can latch onto characters. That was what I was looking for. Like once I had that, did my business plan, put in all the dates and targets in my very mechanistic way because I'm a spreadsheet sort of girl. And I actually had to leave my day job because I just had too much writing going on and I was full time very, very quickly. And it was quite extraordinary. And if you tell people this, they think, "Oh, she's been lucky. She must know people." Well, no, I've actually come from what Americans would call the projects. I come from a council house background. No advantage, no well-connected relatives, anything like that. I just built it from basic principles, which is how I do everything. And while before I went full time as a writer, I had got a place at Michigan State University for their summer program, Clarion, which was designed to give people a sort of grounding for a career in publishing, a paid career. It was really aimed at short stories, and no one except Harlan Ellison has ever lived off short stories. But I thought it's not going to teach me to write because I can either write or I can't. But it was a contact with people in the industry. So they'd come along and do guest talks and things. So I met a couple of editors, and two of them said, "When you do your first novel, you send it to me." So I didn't even have to slog through things.
Hmm.
I didn't have to find an agent because I'd made contacts with editors direct in this situation. This is very much a journalist skill. The reason I keep saying this is because it shapes everything I write in fiction. I still think like a journalist. So it's contacts, so it's research, lots and lots of research. And it's treating fiction as if it's real because that's the only thing I know how to do. I have no book in me trying to I have no story to tell. I just say what's going on here and interview the characters and then get in their heads to give the answer. But I'd sold the my first series because I could then go out to an agent and say, "I've got interest. Do you want to do this?" And they'd bite your arm off. And I sold my first trilogy. Before the first book was out, I had another Big Four publisher saying, "Do you want to do tie-ins? Can we persuade you to do tie-ins?" I didn't know what a tie-in was. I had to phone someone and say, "What's a tie-in?" They said, "Oh, it's licensed work." And of course, there was a lot of money on the table for this. So I said, "Yeah, of course I will," because they wanted. The word gets around. They say she writes military fiction and she turns stuff in on time. And yeah, that's probably something like that. So that was it. And I wouldn't say I coasted. I certainly didn't. I mean, I have put in some hours. I have busted my gut on this job in terms of getting stuff written, but I never had to pitch for work again. I was only someone would
Really?
ring me up and say, "No, never."
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I've seen this in television. Someone gets a presenter, and then everybody wants one because they've seen them perform. Someone else has taken the risk of whether they can do it or not, and then it becomes like, get me that person. And you see the same presenter on tons and tons of programs. Well, that's what happens. It's they need the validation of someone else taking the financial risk of does this person actually know how to do the job, and then they'll all dive in. So I'd get offers. It'd be like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I just had to sit there and go, yes, yes, no, absolutely no way in hell, etc. And that sounds terrific because remember, all I wanted to do at the time was replace my management salary. I had to eat. And I was well replacing my management salary. I was really happy with this. Um, the years later, I look back and think that was the worst thing that could have happened to me because I never stopped to think what I wanted to do myself. Even though I was still writing my own original fiction, it was just this stream of money from franchises. And of course, once you get a name for being the go-to girl for military fiction, that oh she'll turn it in on time. Don't worry. You know, people ask you to get them out of a sticky spot. Can you do this? It's a rush job. Yeah, sure. Ka-ching. And that was really the level I operated on, which sounds soulless, but yeah, if you've read my books, you can see I put an enormous amount of effort into them. It's not that I phone it in. I certainly don't. Actually, I don't think anyone phones it in. I think everyone does their best, and the I phoned it in is the excuse when it doesn't quite hit, because it's very hard to write below your standard. It's really hard to do it. It's really hard to fake and lose a match if you're a sportsman. Yeah, it's actually harder to do that than just to do your best. So we're at the stage where coming to Gears now, which is what everybody really wants to hear about. And some of you will have heard this story before because I always tell it. Is that one day I got a contact from my one publisher I wasn't getting on terribly well with. He said, you know, we've got something that's a bit of a rush job. There is a book. We already had a book, but the company didn't want it, and you know, I'm casting around. It will be a rush job. And I said, well, what is it? And there was a bit of umming and ahhing. And I said, you've got to tell me. Just give me a name, because I stayed away from looking at IPs in case I was asked to write them. If I know what an IP is about, I'll have an opinion. I need to go into it like a journalist cold. I need to walk into that marketplace and grab the first person I see and say, what's going on here? I can't have an opinion beforehand, or I don't see it as a writer, as a journalist. I see it as a consumer. So I lived in a state of purdah of not looking at any games or movies or anything like that. And they said Gears of War. And because I didn't really trust the publisher, I'd had a few stitch ups from them. I said, just leave it to me for a second. And I thought, I mean, it's a decent amount of money. Can I afford to drop that amount of money? And I knew one person, well, two people, but one of them who would tell me the absolute truth. I didn't look online. I didn't let anything interrupt me. I got in touch with Jerry Hawkins from Penny Arcade because we were quite matey. And I I've still got the email, obviously, because being a journalist, I keep every bit of correspondence. But I actually said, Jerry, can I pick your brains? No names, no pack drill. But if I said Gears of War to you, what would your reaction be? And the answer came back, it's Travis Town, do it. Which
Wow.
was, I thought, right, yeah. I mean, he knew my work very, very well. And if Jerry said, I mean, he could easily have said about a game, oh well, you know, it's all a bit dodgy, and yeah, I mean, they're nice enough people, but it isn't for you. I didn't even tell him what I'd been offered, you know, so he knew immediately, and he said, do it. So on the strength of Jerry, because I can trust the guy, I thought, okay, I'm going to look online and see what I see about this, because the internet is the worst place to get any impressions of anything, because you don't know which results have been loaded. But before I do that, I would just give you a bit of a flashback now. A few months before, it might have been longer, I've got my. It was at the time when I was missing the newsroom noise, and I'm not so bad now because the older you get, the more noise interrupts you. But in 2008 or whatever it was, in 2008, something like that, I still needed newsroom noise, so I had my in the corner. I still had a TV in the days when I had a TV, and I'd have the sound down just far enough that there was a burble, there was white noise, and there was like you were in an occupied newsroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could write on with that going on in the background because I couldn't hear what was going on, but it gave me that feeling of being in a busy newsroom, and I was bashing around the keyboards. And for some reason, something must have flashed out at the corner of my eye, and I just looked at the screen, leaned back, and there was this animation ongoing. I didn't know what it was. And I'm sat there, I'm thinking, what the hell is that place? What on earth is that bloke? Why is he on his own? Why is he running through that street? What is that? What's he picked up now? Oh my god, It's a broken statue. What's that got to do with it? What is this place? What's happening? Well, you know what I'm describing. I'm describing the Mad World promo. And I
Yeah.
didn't know it was Gears of War because I got to the end of it and I just wanted to know more. I mean, it was a story. There was a real story inherent in this, and it grabbed me. But because I was on a deadline, I just went back to work and I forgot about it. Right. Fast forward again to having finished the conversation with Jerry. I just typed in Gears of War, and that was the first page. That was the first result that came up, and I thought, I have to, I have to do this. This is meant to be. This is absolutely meant to be. I've got to. I've got to find out what happens. So that was it, and from there on, it sort of snowballed because I mean, I they said, do you want to rewrite what's happened before? I said, no, I can't work that way. You see, the way I work is I've got to start from basic principles with absolutely everything. And it's not just writing, it's everything. If I can't take it back to basic principles and work it out for myself, I'm just lost. I can't take anything for granted. So my first chat with Epic, and I said, right, you want this book? The book's got a title already. You've already got a title that's in the system. I mean, that's a boring publishing bit. Changing titles and all that can be quite difficult. I said, so it's Aspho Fields. You want it to be about Aspho Fields? And Mike goes, yeah. And I said, well, tell me about the Battle of Aspho Fields then. And this was the conversation that pretty well set it for the next few years. He said, well, there's a battle at Aspho Fields. Marcus Phoenix fought there. His best friend Carlos Santiago was killed there. Dom Santiago, his brother, fought there as well. And that's all we know. The rest is up to you. Knock
Wow.
yourself out. And that really was like that. And I thought, I can do business with these people. So, and we really just took it from there. And the joy of it is that they wanted the books to inform the game. And the really clever thing about Epic, which a lot of IPs never learn, is that they didn't embroider. They'd only used what they needed to for the game. They didn't add all sorts of random things in. The thing is with canon will come and bite you hard in the arse if you try and add too many things in early on that don't emerge naturally from the process of the story. And they avoided it. They were really, really good at that. They were smart. So I'd say, what about this? And they go, no, tell us. What happened? What would you put in there? And that was the whole point. They didn't just want a book and hold you at arm's length like some IPs would. They wanted my stuff to be part of it,
Right.
and that motivates people like you wouldn't believe. And they were just inclusive, sort of maligned word now, but I was part of it. I was part of their team, and we got on terrifically. We got on like a house on fire. And I could say things like, do you mind if I change Hoffman a bit? I said, because I know he didn't have that function in the game, but I need someone of that age group with that span of knowledge. Because if we're going to do, I'm going to do flashbacks. Someone said, I said, I'll try flashbacks because you can't just do something. I didn't feel that something could be entirely written in the past. You're going to have to refer to how ASFO changed what happens in the games that players have seen. They were part way through making Gears 2 at the time. So, and I was they were sharing all that with me, which was great. And so I knew roughly the areas to stay away from or what to add to, and we just went from there. And
Yeah, it's well, I mean, you the I'll say this. I mean, I was showing the chat just a little bit ago, Karen. I've got you were talking about Aspho Fields. I got the book here.
yeah,
You can really tell and one of the things that's interesting as I've read through Aspho Fields as well as I've got Jacinto's Remnant right next to me as well, and reading through these I mean, because in terms of like the order of this, so Aspho Fields comes out in 2008, and then a year later you had Jacinto's Remnant, and it was almost like it just felt like I mean it was you were bringing out a novel in the Gears of War universe every year. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, from oh
That's
eight.
actually quite slow for me at the time because I could do four books a year. I can't do that now. I mean, I'm way too old to do that. It just kills me. But yeah, I mean, I must admit, I did drop a lot for Gears. I mean, this is what held up my creator own stuff, just because I was so into Gears. I mean, trust me, I was not into any of the other IPs I've worked on. I mean, I did the job. Um, I put everything I had into it, but I was not, I was not viscerally engaged in it. That's what, and I can tell you exactly what Gears is unique. People hear me say it, and they think, "Oh, she's just saying that for marketing. Oh, she's just on, just being on message." No, Gears is unique. Gears triggered something in my brain that nothing else could, and I've spent years trying to work this out because obviously I've had best part of 19 years to think about this. Um, everything I needed to know about Gears was in the imagery. It was pictorial.
Mm,
Don't underestimate how much the artists shaped what happened in my head. I love working with artists. It's one of the reasons I love comics, because you can strike sparks off each other. And I'm always the better for having seen what an artist has done and thinking, I know what's going on there. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, but I only had to look at the buildings to know what the culture was. I mean, you didn't
hmm.
really even need the story Bible. I mean, the thing about story Bibles is people write them in the best way in the world, but they never wholly withstand contact with the actual game or movie or whatever. A lot gets dropped, but all I needed to do was look at the pictures, and I knew 99% of what was going on. And that is down to, I don't know how the artists do it. We almost had a hive mind at one stage. I'll mention that later because that was freaky stuff. But if I looked at the buildings, I knew what the state of the civilization was. And talking to Cliff one day, he said they were aiming for sort of European faded grandeur, and that's exactly it. So I knew roughly the sort of stiff upper lip, sort of ancient, historically bound sort of place that Tyrus would be. I only had to look at the one of the concept artists had done an incredibly detailed pencil drawing, black and white pencil drawing of Hoffman, and he just showed it to me one day, and I said that motivates me to do a lot more about Hoffman. I looked at this bloke, and the little journalist bit in me went, "You've got to interview that man. Look at that interesting face. He's got some serious stuff to tell you. He's done some bad stuff, and you've got to talk to that guy." And that was the reaction. And I approach it like a journalist because, um, I mean, the way I do my own original stuff is because I don't have all these stories waiting to bubble out of me. I don't never had any pet stories like a lot of writers do. I say, right, where is this happening and when? You know, what is it, 15th century Venice, the Sengoku periods in Japan or whatever? Who would be there? Who would logically be there, and what would they be doing and why? And then you build the characters, and I build the characters, and I really do build them very, very thoroughly. And with characters I inherit, I do a lot of addition to it.
Well, I want to. Okay,
If I
okay, so
have some,
I want to really dive into that, Karen, for sure, because I
mm,
think that's something that people would love to hear. Like what it was like psychologically going into the mind of Marcus Phoenix, Dominic Santiago, but also, you know, not just that. I look at it like from a kind of like from a global perspective, or from like kind of outside perspective looking in, what you did with writing these stories and having them not only, I guess one of my questions would be, did you write them kind of exactly as they appear, kind of in order? Did you jump around? Like, did you know, okay, we're starting with Asphalt Fields, I'm going to end with the slab? Or like, was it like, because you're essentially, we're talking as a, you know, I'm not a writer personally. I've written some scripts before, but
you know,
like I think about it, you are writing novels that are also, you know, they're corroborating around the games as well as
yeah, yeah,
comics. It's all of these things mixed together that
yeah,
you are
yeah,
involved in. Like, what does that
yeah,
process look like for a writer like you? Like, it sound, I mean, what's incredible is so many people, they wanted you, and like they're coming, like after you showed, hey, like your work ethic, turning things in on time, all of that stuff, now everybody wants you and you're a hot commodity. And like, just I can only imagine like the level of organization that you have. You could definitely teach me some shit. Like,
Yeah,
what what
organisation indeed. No,
I
I'm
don't know if
actually
it's a
very well
lack
versed in
thereof, or
organization.
if like it was
Yeah,
unbelievable, like having to do that. What was that? I guess like I really want to lean into games, novels, comics, and
yeah.
what was your process like starting with Aspho Fields to where we ended off with the slab? Was it written like you just write it chronologically? It's like in your head you're doing that, or you're jumping back and forth between, different as you're working on the actual,
Yeah, yeah,
novel themselves.
yeah, yeah. I mean, first thing I'll say in terms of, I mean, what I'm known for is getting into characters' heads because that's the only way I can tell the story. I do not know the story. Characters make the plot.
Hmm.
It's the interaction of the characters. I know that sounds daft, but yes, that's exactly how I do it. I can't do it any other way. It's not that I'm saying, oh, that's the only way I'll do it. It's the only way I can do it because the characters make the plot. If I've built them well enough or fleshed them out, if they're pre-existing ones well enough, I can guess how they react with each other, because well, partly because one of the privileges of being a journalist is you end up meeting and talking to a far wider slice of humanity than most people, and they're either at the best day of their life or the worst day of their life. So you see the extremes of humanity. So I've got all these tiny, tiny things like pop together beads that are facets of human psychology, traits, and all that. And then if I've got something to coalesce around, like I need I don't know, an accountant on the run, or I've got a guy from a founding family who's just been sprung from prison for neglect, for basically losing the city because he's gone off to help his dad. And suddenly all these characteristics come up. Now, Marcus is the only one who did not go through that process because Mike Cap said, you can't go inside Marcus's head. And I thought, oh my God, I was so far out of my comfort zone then. The old comfort blanket came out, and I thought, how am I going to do this? And actually, it was really good to be forced out of that behind the eyes approach. You see Marcus reflected in everybody else. I know what he'd do, but I've not been inside his head. I know what drives him, but I've kept it superficial. Yeah. Whereas when I'm writing the other characters, I literally dissociate. Now, medical science has vindicated me on that. I first came across this, switch yourself off and you switch on a totally different personality, like possession almost. I know it sounds completely bonkers, and it must be awful if it's actually part of a mental illness. It really must be terrifying. I dissociate voluntarily, and the person who actually started to nail this for me was Admiral Akbar. Yeah, the guy who played Admiral Akbar. We were at a Star Wars gig waiting around, and we were talking about how we tackled the IP. And uh, I told, yeah, and obviously I know what actors do. I mean, I didn't say what's it like to go with that with something stuck over your head for a whole scene or something, which always fascinates me. But when I told him how I do characters, he said, you're method acting. That's how we do it.
I
You
was,
think
yeah,
yourself into that. Yeah, it's method acting. Now, the interesting thing is must be about 4 years ago, I read about some research done at a Canadian university. I think it's Manchester University in Canada. I've got the link if anyone wants to email me later if they're really interested. They basically, I'll sum this up quickly. They basically wired up actors' brains while they were reading parts. They read around the table, and they watched the part of the brain that was the person themselves, which was normally the bit that was lit up, go dark, and another part of the brain lit up when they went to character. They suppress their personality. They suppress their own personality. There are people who tell you can't do that. Well, medical science says otherwise, and I say otherwise because I can do it, and lots of people do it. Know the enemy. Think like the enemy. Think like the customer. Think like the criminal. Lots of professions do this without realizing it, but I have to do it to the nth degree because I've got to explain. I've got to show my working as to what Cole is thinking, or what Baird is thinking, or what Dom's thinking, and I have to get into that. And when I come out of it, I don't necessarily remember all of it. So when I read a book that I've written years later, when I've gone cold on it, I can't remember writing it. So, did I write
Really?
that? And I go back and yeah, I mean, it isn't like total amnesia, but it's like, did I really write that? It doesn't sound like me. Of course, it wasn't me. It was them. So I'd go back to my manuscripts initially and go, thinking someone had changed it, word for word. Nobody touched my copy. You know, it's pretty well. It stayed as it was pretty well, and so it's very odd. And I had the shock of my life when I reread the slab this year. I couldn't believe I'd done it. It was like, oh, this is the most depressing, brutal thing I've ever read. Did I really do this? And it really slapped me around the head. It was quite a shock. I didn't think I was capable of that. But it's yeah. I mean, if you read the slab, you know what I mean. But in
Well,
terms of what you asked about fitting it in,
yeah.
when you're working on something and you know what's coming and you don't, and some stuff's being worked out. I mean, one of the things about um, I can't remember. This has been like 17 years ago, so I might have things out of order. But I think I might have. They might have said, do you want to do the comics before?" And then uh, they were having some issues about, shall we just say, scheduling, for want of a better word. And Rod Ferguson said, "Do you fancy writing the game?" And of course, you know, I mean, bit his arm off to there, because there was one thing I knew was coming that I really would have. I actually said to him, "I'd love to do that in a book." And it was then they said, "Well, we're not sure what's going to happen at the end, but Adam's got to. Adam is going to die." And I thought, I said to Rod, "So poor old Marcus, this broken man, this broken bloke, he loses his father once, grieves for him
Yep.
and his awkward relationship with him, and then he's alive, and then he loses him again." I said, I want to do that. I want to do that in a book." And I ended up being able to do it for the game, which and poor old Marcus. I mean, there's some very broken guys there, but basically, because I was sort of doing stuff, I managed to keep it clear in my head. And the thing is, if it's one writer on it, you can do that. This is where canon does not managing canon. I've learned after nearly 20 years, or more than 20 years, of trying to come up with a good system for IPs to keep their canon in line. Because, you know, a bit of a spreadsheet, managerial brain coming in there. And I'm thinking there's got to be a better way of everyone keeping their canon together. And it is not doable at scale, because the different parts, you know, the input from artists, the game, comics, novels, they progress at different paces. Not even an AI could coordinate humans doing that, because there's certainly with a book, for example, you're writing something, you write it on the day, you go back, you take out bits, trying to keep all the people in that cohort, shall we say, informed of what the others are doing. It rapidly descends to chaos. So you will always get something that doesn't fit. Now, some IPs go, "It all fits." Nah, it doesn't. Just admit it. And, you know, readers or players or cinema audiences will understand. If you just say, "It's really tough doing this because everyone's working on something different at different speeds," and, you know, understand it. But I was at that sweet spot where I was doing it all. So I
I
only have myself to blame.
I mean,
Um,
oh my god. Well,
and that made it easy.
well, yeah. Well, something that when you were talking about kind of the method acting, what Karen is alluding to, guys, is so as an actor, I'm sure you guys have heard, like, there's some actors that do not come out of character while they're on set. So, like, what that means is, for example, one of the greatest actors of all time is Daniel Day Lewis, and he has done a number of different movies, one of them being Lincoln, where he played as Abraham Lincoln. He will, while they're on set, so let's just say they're shooting a film, the film was shot in 60 days or whatever it might have been. That 60 days, he was Abraham Lincoln all the time, whether he was on camera, off camera, like he would act like Abraham Lincoln would consistently throughout the entire day. And another guy who does this is Leonardo DiCaprio. He has done this like with The Wolf of Wall Street, with, for example, like playing as Jordan Belfort, and so on and so forth. And so, what's really fascinating about what you're talking about, Karen, is some of these actors, they are essentially encapsulating their one character in its totality, but you as a writer, have to encapsulate all of these characters. So,
Yeah.
like, what is that? Like, did you lean more into the psychology of Marcus because he's the main guy? Or did you have to lean into Dom in certain sequences more than you would? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was that like? I mean,
Yeah.
was it always okay, this is the end goal, but or was it this is what's happening right now, and so I have to be locked in on and kind of go into, Cole's brain right now, or whatever. Like, what transitioning? How complicated was that?
I do this with all my books, you see, and this is because I'm still uh, telling a story in a televisual way. Um, Another author who I did a workshop with at Worldcon years ago. I mean, he actually bothered to read my stuff before we both taught this workshop. Bless him. Most people wouldn't. And he said, "Have you got a television or movie background?" I said, "Television." He said, "It's an half show." He said, "Everything." He said, "There is a visual equivalent to everything you do. The cuts, the dissolves." He said, "They're all there in words." And that's it. You see, well, I was brought up by a film buff as well, so my mother was a film buff. I'd seen everything by the time I was 10, I think. But yeah, in terms of the characters, this is how I do my own books: is that every character gets their own. I'm 100% in that character for their POV scene, for their point of view scene.
Mm,
Everything is written from the view. Every word in there is that character who is narrating that particular scene, including the prose between the dialogue. That is their thoughts, and that's why the language changes. Dom's language is not the same as Prescott's. Dom is a perfectly normal, the only normal squad member of Delta, perfectly normal blue collar guy. He talks like a blue collar guy, and he talks like Dom, a guy who's lost his brother. Prescott, yeah, very posh, semi aristocratic family, expensive private school. He uses language differently and he thinks different things. When I'm in that character's head, it is solely them. Nobody gets more weight. Um,
wow.
yeah, I mean, it's the only way I can do it because I've got to know what that character says and thinks before I know what the other character is going to say back to him. I am literally one line behind them. I'm literally following them through it. I can see, you only see what they see in that scene. You only know what they know. You only hear what they hear and feel what they feel. And by doing that, um, that's how I create my interviewee, so to speak. I mean, I I go in as a journalist and say, "Tell me what's happening." But obviously, there's no live character to do that. There's no real person, so I have to recreate their head and say, so I know how they'd react. And they frequently don't react the way I would have predicted as me, because when I'm predicting as me, I'm probably predicting as what I would have done. I remember for a totally different IP, I reached a stage where I was jerked out of a character for a second because this character had decided to steal a dead man's car. And I remember stopping and thinking, "You can't do that. That's wrong." And it's like, no, get back into the character.
Mm,
It was very weird. It was the first
yep.
time it had hit me that that's how far I am into the character. So they all get it. I know what it is to be Hoffman. I know what it is to be Baird. I know what it is to be Cole, as far as anyone can. Now, bear in mind, in real life, we never see inside someone's head, however well we know them. Our nearest and dearest, the people we love most, we don't really know what goes on in their heads. Fiction with that level of almost well, it is first person by they're all separate first person if you look at the treatment. Um, you see what's in their head. That's the only time you're ever going to see that in a human being, and it's fictional. So it's a totally different way of seeing the world. Now, when I've been in someone's head, I have to come down out of it and reset as me. There's a time when I did a really nasty character. I remember even serial killers make perfect sense to themselves. This is the point.
Mm,
And
wow.
really, it is up to the reader to decide who they actually believe. But uh, even if you don't a horrible character, they're not thinking I'm a horrible character. They're thinking I'm absolutely justified in what I'm doing. And with a particularly nasty, aggressive one, I sort of finished the scene and thought, right, got to get down the supermarket and do the groceries. And I thought, no, 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 sit down and let that character wash out of you completely, or else you're going to end up in a punch up if the queue's a bit long. Because you sort of feel that as you're sort of coming out of it, you've got to shake it off, which is bizarre. I am not an arty or mystic sort of person. I am very robotic and very pragmatic. And to be able, it sort of surprises me that I can do this, but I've done it all my working life effectively. You think about it, I've always had to know what goes on in someone else's brain, but um, as I say, I gave equal weight to every character, including what I call the B characters. I didn't add characters that I didn't need. I'm saying who's logically going to be there and what are they going to be like. So this is why you've got Bernie, because I couldn't have Hoffman recounting what Dom doesn't know about how Carlos died, because he's there and he would have told them. He's been with them
Right.
all, effectively all the time.
Right.
Then you need someone who was there at the time, would be a certain age because of their seniority and the decisions they had to make, and then had been away for a while, and then had a long time coming back, and suddenly there's this person from their past, and Marcus knows what's gone on, and Marcus is, oh right, yeah, I remember the last conversation we had. So that's why you've got a Bernie. And that's why she's the way she is, and that's why she comes from where she comes from. She comes from the South Islands, and she's she's part. I mean, if we're going to apply it as a sort of Scottish, if you look at New Zealand, say New Zealand was in my head as some remote island off the coast of New Zealand, and you've got she's sort of like she's sort of like three quarters Scots and a quarter Maori, that sort of thing. And everything I do is based on the real world and reality and how I would approach a story. I treat everything as if it's real. Now, I think I said earlier about why I engage so much with Gears, and it's partly the magnificent visualization of the world. The greatest tagline ever in the history of taglines, the one that absolutely I could have nailed it to the wall, and it was my absolute beacon, and that is, and I don't know, I think it was for the first game, I can't remember, understand what a world had to do to survive. I think
Mm.
that's the greatest tagline ever. Explain everything. This was a
Wow.
desperate last throw for a dying world, and the what I really liked, and I hadn't really fully worked out until fairly recently, was this is basically about four blokes. This is a bloke thing. This is four blokes, and they are an extraordinary squad. They are an extraordinary squad. Any way you want to carve that up, the dynamics of those four is quite astonishing. You've got three men who've been immensely wealthy and aren't immensely wealthy at all now, with one guy who grew up in a pretty poor house and is the only normal one, and he's lost everything. He's lost his family. He's lost his entire family. Um, you've got Cole, who grew up in a happy, loving house. Wasn't rich, but I mean now this absolutely worshipped global stars, something like Messi or Haaland
Hmm.
in sort of soccer terms, this sort of phenomenon, and he's lost everything. He doesn't care about that. He cares about he's lost his parents. And then you've got um, Baird. Baird's really complicated, and the Baird Cole dynamic is fascinating. And then you've got Marcus. Poor Marcus. I mean, my heart breaks for him, but it also breaks for Baird. They are almost mirror images of each other. And that's the really
Mm.
interesting thing. And I didn't realize that until recently. It's a sliding doors thing. They almost certainly live in the same area. They live in the barricades, someone into the barricades or the other. They don't meet. I mean, obviously there's a couple of years difference in age and all that, but um, Marcus, I mean, both of them have parents who are present but not involved. That's, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
You've got Marcus with this. He loses his mum when he's like 13 or something, I think it is. Um, his dad's his dad's one of his theoretical parents. He loves his son, but he's always away. And instead of thinking, I need to be here for 5-year-old Marcus, when just before he deploys to Kashkur in, I think that's Anvilgate, he just goes for a walk around this huge parkland of a garden in sort of Haldane House and says, I'm going away. And Marcus has seen him go away before and it upsets him. And he says, I want to be a gear to him. He said, no, 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 no. I'm going to make sure you never have to fight a war, Marcus. I'm going to invent something that will stop wars. And little 5-year-old Marcus doesn't want to think about this theory of saving the world. He wants his daddy now. And you
Yeah.
just watch him break, and
Yep.
he's lonely. And I sort of seeded it through the rest. I thought, who does he talk to then? What is it? It's the gardener. This is why he knows all the botanical names of the trees when he's 5. This is why when he's in prison in the prison garden, he knows how to maintain the pond. It was the gardener who took pity on him. He didn't. It's tragic. I could have cried for him. And then you've got poor old Baird, who's well. I'd have to. There's a. I'm gonna have to censor myself now because there's information that I work with, which I'm not sort of privy to share. But you got this poor kid he's really bright. Uh, he's got to be an engineer. He's an absolute genius at it. But his mother. Oh, in the original thing I had, it was just he's from a founding family, and I'm thinking he doesn't talk like he's from a founding family. So perhaps dad isn't from a posh background, and mum is a founding family, which is where you get Baird the judge and Eleanor Lytton, who's the one with the pedigree, and they want him to be a soldier, and he doesn't. Now he's always frustrated, but his constant mouthing off. I mean, he's hilarious. He's great to write. I love writing him because he doesn't censor a single
No,
thing,
he doesn't.
but he does though. But there are times when he does, when he keeps his mouth shut, and he knows when. I mean, when Bernie is in a bit of a, she's in a bit of a state when she gets back to Tyrus. She's on a knife edge, and he says something out of turn. He actually asks a perfectly reasonable question there. Who is this Marcus Phoenix, and why should I serve with someone who's just come out of jail for after 4 years for neglecting his duty and getting men killed? Perfectly reasonable question. Not to Bernie, who, of course, her brain's still at ASFO and all the other terrible things that happened to her. So she slugs him, but he doesn't hit her back because he's a gentleman. He's been told you don't hit girls, and he doesn't hit old ladies. And there's all these little bits where he shows forbearance. And then you've got Cole. I mean, Cole is happy and sort of utterly charming to everyone, but he's still writing letters to his dead mother because he can't process it. He knows how to put himself straight, and he also knows when not to be lovable, Cole, and to put his foot down. So you've got these absolutely fascinating characters, and they're absolutely tragic.
Yeah. No, I'm it's amazing, like just amazing hearing like the way that you kind of went through like each individual character psychologically. I mean, okay, my follow-up question to that, Karen, is you're talking about, you know, some of the different characters, whether it was like New Zealand, Scotland, different areas.
Now,
What kind, okay, I guess two-part question. I would love to hear your favorite, like, whether it's which novel was your favorite to write, if you have one, or like your favorite memory of writing. But I want to ask you, when you're going into, I think you mentioned Bernie,
mm,
for like New Zealand or Scotland, and when you're tapping into that mind, do you do like what a location scout would do? Did you go to New Zealand? Did you go to Scotland? Or was it still like you're in your, like, was everything for the most part in your home that you're like, as you're crafting Gears of War? Or was it you're all over the place? You're like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
what
I
was
mean,
that process like?
there are things in the past where I have physically done them for real to see what it feels like. There are things I couldn't. I mean, I would love to go on to New Zealand, but it's out of the question. I could never have. There's not only time and money. It's just knowing people from that environment, knowing history, a lot of research. Um, I learned a lot about beef farming when I was writing those books, and I learned a lot about oil rigs while I was doing those books because that's the level I go to, as I would have done as a journalist if I knew I was going to do a really big series of features on something, I would just shred it. I just need to know what I need to know, and yeah, so no, I wasn't sort of jetting off to all these interesting places I would have loved to have done. There are times in the past when I've gone and done things like that for the sake of a book, but it just isn't the time. There wasn't the time in my schedule. I mean, I could. I was working 16-hour days for 2-3 years. I mean, I always have done, but I mean that was hard. Gears was physically hard. Games were physically hard.
Wait,
It's all
so
the weird
so
hours
so
and everything.
so you were saying like you would say your average like work day when you were crafting the Gears of War novels, novels, comics. I mean, all of these things that you're kind of juggling
Yeah,
here. Were
yeah.
you would say probably 16-hour days?
That's pretty well what I've done since the time I started writing fiction full time. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
I mean, and it's not a good idea. I'll tell you now. Anyone who thinks they've got to emulate that, don't do it. It will not help you. The writing is the smallest part of it. It's the research that's a big bit. I mean, I spent I spent about a day for another IP doing research on traumatic brain injury for one line. People mock
wow.
colleagues have mocked me and go, "Yes, Karen, you're taking this way too seriously." But it's the journalist in me. I have to know. I go as real as I can because I can only extrapolate from reality. I have to treat it as if it's real. It's not, oh, I'm writing fiction. It's okay. I'm in this world. It's in a really bad state. Terrible things are happening. People are dying. He's lost his brother. Um, you know, he's still trying to get marks out of prison, that sort of thing. So I just realised I didn't mention Dom when I was talking about the dynamics of the group. I always say Dom's a normal one. I'm not a massive. I know that people say to me, "Who would you like in real life?" I think I don't think I get on with Dom, funnily enough, even though we're from the same class. He's very censorious. He's very finger waggy, and he's horrible to Baird. He treats him like a kid, but Baird never says, "Stop trying to be my dad," because he knows how wounded he is about his kids. So it tells you a lot about the pair of them. But I'm not sure I'd get on with Dom. I'm not sure. I don't know how I'd tackle Marcus if he were real. I just nod at him. I think you're never going to get him to talk. You're never
Hmm.
going to get anything out of him.
Well,
He is he is
at
he is
least
not a monologuer.
right. Well, I'll say, as someone who's, uh, just been a Gears of War fan, and the books are incredible. The games connected, so well with in this universe. Um, One of the things, Karen, that I've noticed with a number of the characters, and it kind of makes sense because when we talk about E Day, like Emergence, I mean, this is
Yeah,
the day where billions of people being wiped off the face of
yeah,
Sarah. And
yeah,
I look at as a case study, or not even so much a case study, but more like I look at Gears of War as um it's pain and what pain does to good people. And
mm,
like, and maybe not all of them are good people, but I've looked at this and I say to myself, wow, like this is a story of pain. And
yeah,
and
and
because
sacrifice. Yeah,
like you were saying, it's the pain that Marcus felt multiple times, the pain that
yeah,
Dom felt, like
yeah,
just this, the, and the suffering of like, and now
yeah,
the brotherhood of putting like
yeah.
these guys coming together in a time
Yeah,
where shit is hitting the fan. And
absolutely,
oh my God,
absolutely.
it's just a,
Yeah.
it's incredible. So I guess we could kind of go back here for a moment. That in terms of, did you have a favorite novel or a favorite memory from one of the novels or multiple novels, or was it more like the next one was your favorite one? You know what I mean? Kind of like the Tom
Oh,
Brady
yeah,
mindset
yeah,
of what's your favorite
yeah,
championship? Oh, the next one.
yeah.
What?
I never have favorites. This is the thing, but I do have things that I read and I think, okay, I wouldn't mind being judged by that book. I wouldn't mind being judged by the slab. I think I really, I think I really felt that book, which is weird because when I finished a book, I hate them all. I hate a book when I finished it. I cannot judge them because I've not been in my own head. It's weird. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, it's this dissociation business, I think, but I can never judge my book. And one of the things about writing it, one of our tutors at Clarion said this. She said, you will go through the 25%, 75% crisis. And that is pretty well, most writers, probably in most books even, will get to a stage. You start on a book, you think, yeah, I'm absolutely fired up. This is the best thing since sliced bread. I'm really loving this. And you get to 25% of what you think your word count's going to be, and you think, no, I made a mistake. No, this is crap. I can't do this. But you push on. with all this doubt, and then you get to 75% and think, oh no, I was right the first time. This is garbage. I should stop now, but I've done so much. And so you push on to the end, and then it's fine. And this is a known phenomenon. And it is. Once I knew that, once I've been through it once, it's very easy to push through it. But you think, oh, I'm at the 25% now. Oh dear, it's a wrist slashing time. No, no, keep going, keep going. Go and have a cup of tea, calm down. It's fine, carry on. And I just do it that way. So I don't have favorite books. I don't have favorite characters. It's about how much of a struggle it was, or whether I nailed what I thought I was trying to nail, whether I was doing an honest job, whether I was portraying really what that character would do. And I mean, there are various things. And some of the B characters who just popped up because I needed that, there would logically be that character there. It's like Paul Dury, the Onyx Guard guy.
Hmm.
I wish I'd. I mean, I've already said that that I won't go on and do any more novels, but I was sat there thinking the other day, it'd been really nice to have Paul Jury and Neville Estrom, Adams Adams Bagman, his assistant who does a lot of his work. They were a great double act. I just thought they would make a really good double act. And there's a bit where I really warmed to old Paul when. Remember, this is Paul speaking. It's not what I would have said. It's what he says. Is he explains to Neville, um, he's absolutely transparent when he's interrogating him, and he's telling him, you know, uh, you've got to, you've been positively vetted, Nev. You know that you can tell us anything as long as it's not a lie. There's no wrong answer, only a lie. And you can hear Neville thinking that this guy just tells you exactly everything, and he's not threatening you. He's just telling you what's going to happen if you don't cooperate. And they're really pally. And I thought there's a great pair I could have done more with, but they're logically they should be there. So I like things like that pop up that I wasn't really planning, that I suddenly realised. So who's actually the military support on Azura, and it's on its guard. So what are they like? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't plan. The more detail you try to plan in advance, and this is another thing that I owe Sean Stewart taught me this at Clarion. He said, if you know what's going to happen, you're going to get bored. He said, try riding by the seat of your pants, and try just going for it. Take your hands off the wheel. And I found I could do that because I can let the characters run it. And that's when the two elements clicked for me. Was one, you've got to let the characters run it because you're interviewing people in the broadest sense, in the journalistic sense, but also that not thinking you know what comes next and just constantly pushing forward and not planning ahead. Those two mesh, and that then became my method, and it works every time for me.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
I mean, I think the slab, in terms of, I mean, I'd some people have said, Karen, you know rather too much about the interior of men's prisons. And actually, that's because I did some filming in my TV days in a lifeless prison. And they were the nicest people you could wish to meet. And they're all in for murder, arson, and all that sort of thing. They're not what we call category A, which would have been Hannibal Lecter types, or really really dangerous ones. But they have committed something that gives them a life sentence, so it's serious. And that was a real revelation to me. Spending a day in a prison filming, it wasn't what I thought, and a lot of that came out in the slab because you start to warm to the characters, don't you? You start to. I wonder what happened to Reeve at the end. I would have loved to have known where Reeve went. He wasn't going to stay locked up. So there's all that. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I,
so the answer is no. I don't have a favourite book, but
right.
um,
I mean, my follow up to that, because you kind of brought up an interesting, like something interesting that I, would like to ask you. We're okay. Couple like kind of two part question here. The first one is, did you do you did you play the games to get inspiration from, like, say, the novels as the games were coming out and you're writing it? Did you get inspiration from playing the games or watching people play them? And are there things in the novels that you may have, you look back on and you say, I wish I would have changed this or that, or maybe we went a little bit of a different direction here, or maybe the hook should have been here or whatever. Like, was there anything like that? Or were you like, after you were done writing them, it's like, okay, like I'm like, it's done, it's over, you know, now I'm no longer, you know, it's very fascinating to me as well from just talking with you, Karen, how you're able to, once you're done with a novel, you can just move on, and it's like you erase it from memory. That is fascinating to me. It's really, really interesting. So I guess the first part is, do you play the games? Because I know a lot of people out there would love to know if you've played the games, and did you draw inspiration from the actual games, like from playing them or from watching others do it? And then are there things that you would have liked to see maybe changed, or see things that maybe you could have changed, or that you look back on, or are you good with the because I will tell you that these books to us as Gears of War fans are perfect, like just incredible. What do you think about that?
I didn't play the game because I'd got rid of my Xbox by then. I actually did have an Xbox. I've now got the cannibalized hard drive somewhere. I remember I would go over to Epic quite often and spend a week there. So I had plenty of time to sit around with the lads, and plenty of time with Greg Mitchell, which normally raises a smile from Gears people. They go, "Oh, Karen thinks Greg walks on water." Yes, I do. I think Greg Mitchell walks on water. Yeah, sorry for people who don't know. He was the cinematics director. I can't remember what his proper title was, but we'd both had a TV background, so we sort of got quite pally, and really good bloke to sit down with and brainstorm with. Um, Obviously, I saw a lot of the stuff being done. I also had friends who played Gears and had very strong opinions on the gameplay. So I took a lot of it from that. But I mean, I spent a lot of time with the artists. Um, in a way, see, this is the interesting thing about gameplay is that people. I mean, when I was doing things like discoverables and all that. I mean, obviously, then it's relevant. It's extremely relevant. Um, but I don't mind if gameplay deviates from. I mean, sorry, if we could, sorry, rewind that
Yeah.
half ramble. I was talking about E-Day. I was asked to do consultancy on it quite late. I say late in the day. This was getting on for 3 years ago, and so I've been on and off since then. Um, not involved directly with it, and not at the level I was with three. I mean, and it took a bit of adjusting to go from that to be totally immersed in it and involved in every single bit of it, to being on the periphery and just giving opinions and saying, well, I think think you should do that with that character, and not knowing what actually gets incorporated, because I haven't seen anything for months. I mean, that's normal for consultancy.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've done consultancy with something that I'm connected to, viscerally connected to. Uh, uh, Talking to Andrew, who's their content manager, who wrestles the canon, great guy, and he said something about Aspho, and someone else had said it to me that Aspho's all wrong in one of the games because it's in a city, and they said, does that bother you? And I said, well, no. I mean, the Battle of Aspho Fields was a salt marsh. What sort of gameplay are you going to get on a salt marsh? It's a flat salt marsh. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole
Right.
point in the book. And they said, but why doesn't it bother you? I said, well, you get killed in the game and then you then you get up again. I mean, that's you sort of suspend your disbelief and your approach to reality for the gameplay. It's gameplay. You're not going, oh, well, that wasn't canon. They don't do that. And they were surprised it didn't bother me. It's because I can detach from that bit and say, gameplay separate. You have got to have something that is, the whole point of the story is to engage, well, apart from to give it some sort of direction, is to help the player engage and to feel invested in it. We all know there's nothing worse than watching a movie where you do not give a damn about any of the characters. And I watch too many of those. I think, I really don't care who wins this. They're all horrible characters. I'm not interested. And it ruins the movie. And if characters, in a sense of you know, wanting someone to win or lose, or that person to get their comeuppance, or that person to kill the Locust Queen, or whatever. If you didn't have that, you might as well stick with Pac-Man. I mean, stories do
Mm,
matter because they give you an emotional investment in it, and you know, I say to non-gamers, people know this is happening. They're perfectly right. They're just detaching to relax, to have a bit of fun, to let off steam. It's the healthiest thing imaginable. Because I always get someone who says, "Oh, you do violent games." I say, "No, God, don't start that." I can really lose my temper then, and say, "Look, you know, it probably saves more lives than, than you imagine. People who might have acted out in real life, you can get it out your system with your Xbox. I think that's quite healthy, and it's never been proven. But I'm quite defensive about games with people. It's like, you know, you have to you have to meet gamers, which now is everybody.
yeah.
I'm not going to tell you which games I play because you'll laugh at me. Uh, but sorry, did I answer your question there? Because I actually then went off on a completely random tangent, as I am
Well,
prone to do.
for the most part, you did. I mean, th- I guess like the question about like, would you, and maybe you kind of, maybe you did answer it in a way or another, but was there anything in the novels that you would have liked to
Oh, sorry,
change?
would have done something differently.
Yeah.
I cannot remember. The thing is,
Hmm.
one thing I've found is that when I've completely forgotten something and I have to reconstruct it, I do it exactly the same way because the character doesn't change. It's the character that dictates it. I don't have a new idea. I do what the characters do. I mean, and this is the same in my original fiction, in my creator own stuff. Once I commit to those characters, I do not interfere with the story. I do not think, oh, it wouldn't it have been better to have a really cool scene like that in there. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't go in, and I don't interfere with them. And when they do something that I'm not expecting, it's like, is it consistent with the character? Then it stays in. And you know, you'll have to put your favourite scene to one side because you start out. The way I describe it to people is because I've tried to explain this business of following the characters. Because some writers do not accept it can happen. Yes, it can. If you can dissociate, then you really can do it. But it's like I try and describe it as a train journey. I know I want to go somewhere. I want to go somewhere nice, which is the writing of the book. So I can't go into the local ticket office and say, just give me a ticket somewhere nice, because they'll go, I'm sorry, madam, you'll have to specify a destination. So I pick a destination that I think I might like, knowing that I might have to get off at another station. And I'm on this train thinking, why am I going to Bristol Temple Meads? I don't want to go to Bristol Temple Meads, but we'll see what happens along the way. And a bunch of people get on and we get talking and they're going to do something interesting. They say, tell you what, we're actually getting off here. Do you want to come with us to somewhere else? Come on. And that's what it's like with characters. It's like you have to get the journey going somehow by thinking, I think I know where this is going to end. Uh, and then be prepared for when the character does something that you didn't see because it's not what you would have done, it's what the character would do. So I can't think of anything I would have done differently, mainly because I can't remember it. I'll certainly look through things and think it's a shame I didn't make more of that character, but you can't do them all. I mean, a lot of the big characters were very useful. Um, there are things I would have written differently in some of the Gears games. Because there's one that's particularly stuck with me, and I think, am I telling myself that I think that was wrong? Because it's one of the most loved and talked about scenes in one of the earlier games. Am I saying it's wrong, or am I saying I do it differently? And I'm saying I would do it differently because I can get in the character's head, and I don't think he would have done it quite like that. That's the nearest I've come. But no, I mean, the other thing is you can spend all your time second guessing yourself,
Right.
and you could in theory rewrite everything differently every 5 minutes.
Right.
Now this is the problem that I face when. And you've always got a number of options, even by following the character, because they can jump one or two ways. If you think of the story tree, you can see once you've got that on a much smaller and much more detailed scale within one character, there are options. They can make decisions to go there or not go there, open that door or not open that door. And you will get very different results. But at some point, you have to just hold it together. And I never go back and fix things now. I just stick with it to the end. And because it might work for other people, but for me, once I start unpicking stuff, the whole thing falls apart. It is a chain of causality. I am reconstructing a very complex net of causality, the things we take for granted in real life, that when we light a match, and a bit of smoke comes off, and that smoke goes somewhere and does the molecules do something. You don't have to think that it happens. In fiction, you've got to think all that. You've got to decide all that. So I don't pick too much at stuff that's emerging. I just follow it. Because once you start messing around, as I say, canon, this is why I say do not embroider, do not put in more, do not think, oh, it'd be really cool if that character had this, this, and this, and in the future they do that. It will bite you in the ass. And that's true of anything. But it is particularly true on IPs when you've got multiple writers doing it. And uh, the best you can hope for, I think, is that it broadly fits and it broadly works. And the worst is you're constantly doing retcons that tie you in knots because it's got way out of hand and something has to be done. But it can be done, of course. I will
Yeah.
cite the greatest retcon in the history of the world again. So I'm sort of giving you my greatest hits, the greatest tagline, the greatest retcon. Now I am not a Trek person. My mother loved Trek. Used to always used to take her to the cinema to see the movies, and she loved the series. Enterprise. She quite liked Enterprise. I know people would diss it, but there are two particular scenes that I happened to see that I thought showed really good writing. The retcon for the Klingons. I was sat watching it on my own just as well because if there was anyone with me, I would have thought, well, God, she's gone mad. I actually applauded. The Klingons are very different between the original series and the Next Generation. Not only did
Hmm.
the writer or writers retcon that to explain why they look different, they actually tied it into a brand new plot, which was a brilliant plot, and used Khan from the movies. And it all made perfect sense. It was magnificent. I think, we should give Enterprise some respect for that. It was quite superb. That's a retcon that works. I mean, they should never have had to do it. You know what I mean? But I mean, who would have known that the series would have continued that long? I think this is the thing that as an audience or readers or gamers, we don't see. It's all the other stuff behind the scenes that goes wrong that you can't continue with, that you've got to make these decisions. And they're about things that are not connected to anything artistic at all. They're financial, their availability of talent, their industry strikes, which has screwed a couple of series I was quite enjoying on the telly. So it's a really complex thing. And you've got, I mean, I don't know how many people the coalition's got working on E-Day, but um, Gears 3, we had 100 people. I mean, 100 people doing this, and they were fully occupied, believe me. And it's an enormously complex thing to manage. So it's a
Oh,
miracle games get out at all, to be honest, considering.
I can only imagine, what it's like walking in those doors of the coalition, or I want to go back to Epic Games. What was it like for you, Karen, working so closely? I know you had mentioned a little bit earlier, like, working with Epic Games sounds like that experience was uh just a incredible experience. But like, I guess, like,
Yeah,
working for Epic Games, you have Microsoft a part, is a part of this, and now we, in more um more, I guess, more recently, the coalition, and
yeah,
obviously it was different. You're doing things differently
yeah,
with the coalition than you
yeah,
did with Epic.
yeah,
What was, like, your
absolutely.
relationship like with Epic Games, Microsoft, the coalition now, like, in terms of the way
Yeah,
that the processes, the procedures, and all of those things?
yeah. I mean, Epic because it was a smaller company. It's not part of a bigger corporation. They made their own. They were very, very free with things. Um, they let me have a crack at anything I fancied. They let me go into the mocap sessions and things like that. And you know, if there was anything weird hanging around, they'd say, "Do you fancy writing the copy for the packaging for the action figure?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do anything. I used to be an advertiser, and I'd love to do things. I used to do these odds and ends, and they knew they could just ask me to do them because I was just wanted to learn it all. So they gave me effectively a complete education in all aspects of games, which is brilliant. I mean, they also paid very well. They were great. I mean, I've got no complaints about Epic. They were great, and I always have a soft spot for them. And yeah, I mean, it was just it was extremely nice because they were very unstructured is the wrong word. They if something needed doing, they would do it. There was nothing. There were no constraints, and um, they put an enormous amount of trust in me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and yeah, I mean, they're enormous amount. And we used to have a huge amount when we were doing the sound, when we were doing the voice tracks and the at Technicolor in Burbank. Of course, Burbank always makes me laugh because it was part of Beverly Hillbillies. Actual Burbank, I thought, well, there's something, you know. And you know, there's working with the voice talent. I mean, Fred Tattershaw. Bef- Before we part company tonight, remind me to tell you the Fred Tattershaw story because the man is a god amongst voice artists. He really is. Lovely bloke to work with. He narrated the first of my Nomad series as well. I mean, he's brilliant. He's superb. I mean, they're all great. I mean, Fred is a remarkable human being. Um, so that was fun also, and it
Yeah.
was sort of recording these things and tweaking the script on the fly because sometimes things are better. Fred, bless him, would always he would give you two takes and then he'd ad lib, and as he's a very funny guy, and sometimes would think, oh no, we have to have that ad lib and things like that. You know, it was nice and it was relaxed. Working
Were
for the
you like
coalition.
really quick before we move to the coalition? Were you
Sorry.
like were you on like with Epic Games? Were you on site a lot like during the
Yeah, I was actually.
process? Like what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I used to go over. I was just trying to think. I mean, I never wanted to see Heathrow Airport again. I tell you that. That was the worst bit. Once I was out of Heathrow, I was fine. Go over every few weeks. Once we got into a certain part of the production cycle, and then to Technicolor, um, to do the sound stuff, and then we do pickups. I did from here. You know, basically, I did them down the line and watch that. But it helps to have the writer there because you know you've done this when I was used to writing voiceovers for people in news and current affairs. I'd have presenters, and I got used to their speech patterns. So I would write something that fitted their speech patterns. So I was used to doing this. So you're writing as much for the voice artist as you are for the character. You know what sounds natural and what they can deliver properly. But there's always something that you need to change. The really funny one I can't because you'll probably lose your YouTube channel if I actually say this because it was fairly foul mouthed. It was debating which of two profanities Cole would use. I mean, experimenting with them like it was Shakespeare, and nobody laughed because we'd taken it so seriously. Like, would he say blah 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 grubs or would he say grub blah blah blahs? And sat there for a while, and now we'll go for the adjective first, noun following. It was all like that. This is great. So. Uh,
so
Very
Epic.
hands on.
So
We're all very hands on. Very
right.
hands off with the coalition, obviously, because it's like, can you just go through this stuff? Can you go through the scripts? Can you tell us what you think about this character? Where we need to develop that? How we could develop this? Go through the scripts and is this the way they talk?
Mm.
Because they've obviously got established. Dom and Marcus have established speech patterns now. You can play around with the new characters, but Dom and Marcus, everyone knows what they sound like and the language they use now, and so there's all that sort of thing. And
And like working
the sort of
with
challenge for me is not seeing what they do with it. You see, because I'm not there and I'm not involved with any other part of it, so I don't know what they've taken on board and what they've changed. I don't know what's in or out. And there's a lot of churn on games. There always is. So I know less about the game now uh, than probably the people now playing the beta this weekend. But that's the nature of consultancy. You're there for your opinion and guidance, and they don't have to take it. And but they're a good bunch to work with because there's something about Gears that I think it brings out the best in people. It's always very matey.
it
Um,
oh my gosh. Yeah, it really is. You know, the whole like the mottos, the brothers to the end and like
yeah,
there really is a real brotherhood that I've seen.
yeah, yeah,
Even a sisterhood. Like I mean, so kind of go back to um the early access that myself and other YouTubers and Twitch streamers
yeah,
got access to. I had the privilege of playing with some of the biggest Gears of War YouTubers in the world, but we also played against some of the best Gears of War players in the world. male
Mhm.
and female, Karen. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
there is. I mean, we're talking when we talk about like the pro scene of Gears of War, or what was the Gears esports and all of that. You had, I mean, there's a passionate. Obviously, you have the guys who are, locked in this brothers to the end mindset, but there is a community of female gamers that are
Yeah.
in the Gears of War ecosystem that, I mean, they kicked my ass sometimes, and it's like,
Yeah.
man, they're just good. You know what I mean? They're just like,
Yeah.
there's a what's amazing about Gears of War is that you're right. There's something where it brings people together, and
Yeah.
I think through the games, through the novels, the comics. Obviously, they're working right now over at Netflix on a movie, and there's a number of things that are being worked on here.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this in relation to E Day, and I know you don't. Obviously, there's a lot of things over the last number of years that, from like consulting with the coalition, from what you've heard though, in relation to E Day, are you excited about it? Like to see kind of the direction that they're going? And that's part of the question. The other part is like, did they, and I don't know if you can answer this. If you can't answer this, that's totally fine. But I'm curious as to if they wanted you to write more novels or whatever, for a new generation of people coming into this thing, even though we're going back to E-Day, which with the novels and stuff, I just didn't know if there was something that they asked of you, or they wanted you to maybe do outside of the consultancy kind of realm. Um, so the first part is E-Day as a game. Like, what are your expectations for it? Are you excited about it? What do you think is it going to do for the franchise? And then also, were there conversations that maybe you could make a comeback into the novel realm from a Gears of War perspective?
I'll answer the simple one first because the answer is not determined by Gears. I will not be writing any more novels because I no longer wish to work with traditional publishers. That's a decision I took about 12, 13 years ago, something like that. Just had enough.
Yeah.
I had enough of the industry and the way writers get treated. And it was then possible to become an indie and make a decent living um, by doing it yourself and not having all the hassle. And a very, very transparent payment system with distribution platforms. Sorry, it's a business, remember. I mean,
Right.
I no longer have to work because of my because of my great age and the fact that my investments have and my various pensions schemes have sort of paid off. So I don't have to do this now, but I don't know how to stop either. That's one of the things. I mean, there's a lot of unfinished business writing wise I've got to do. But I will not be writing any more novels if I have to work with publishers. I mean, I already had that conversation with a publisher some years ago. I mean, this is how it all started again. Would have been about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. A publisher said to me, "Would you be willing to write more Gears novels?" And I said, "No." I said, "It's not Gears. I just don't want to work with publishers." And the coalition might know this as well, but they kept coming back to me, this publisher, and then the coalition came back to me, and I thought, I would have done comics, but they said, no, it's not. But no, we don't want to talk about the comics. Do you want to do consultancy? So it was all a bit like that. Yeah, sorry, I've forgotten the other question, which was, I mean, that answers the novels thing.
Yeah.
Not
Well.
as long as I would have to work for a publisher. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to work for a game studio. I'm happy to do contract work for them, but I will not work with another traditional publisher. I am done with them.
Well, the other question was, everything that you've heard about Gears of War E-Day, the
Mm,
up and coming
mm,
entry here
yeah,
in the Gears of War
yeah.
universe. Like, what are your expectations for it?
My expectations. Let's see. I've been following on X people's comments and what they're enjoying, and the general opinion does seem to be. I mean, the aim was to get back to the old gears. The aim was was to really hit that vibe again. Um, uh, the majority of people seem to think it has. I
Yeah.
mean, there was someone who said it hasn't got the same vibe. I think it probably has. I mean, you can't have Marcus in it and not, not at least be a bit back. Uh, yeah, I am quite excited about it. I say quite. It's a weird feeling. There's this because I've not been involved in it. I suppose I don't feel I've got the right to feel anything about it. If you see what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, this is not involved, despite the fact I've had input.
Hmm.
I don't feel involved because it's not like the experience with Epic, but it was never going to be. It's a different structure. It's a different role within the game. So the reason I'm being hesitant is because I know exactly how I feel about uh, the original trilogy and all the stuff that went with it because I was in it.
Yep.
But I'm not so in this, and I'm not sure. But one thing I will say to you, um, despite not knowing what the final form of it is going to be like. But, I mean, this is the thing about it. With a book, there is a point where you go, "That's it, it's done." Press. With this, it's a sort of games. This is people playing betas and stuff being revealed in and changes still being made and things like that. It's actually quite difficult to pin anything down. But the coalition has done their absolute damnedest to stick to the canon in the books. They've actually respected that,
Wow. Okay.
which
I
a lot
love
of
that.
studios wouldn't do. Believe me,
I
trust
love
me, some
that.
studios would not do that, and they were really gracious and good about that. Andrew, and I probably pronounced his name wrong, Morava, who is their basically their content guy. Who, we've had some great conversations, and remember when I started this, I'd completely forgotten Gears. He's coaxed me back into it, and we've had such nerdy nitpicking debates about tiny details. It's been blissful, and we quite enjoy it. We just sort of go off and nerd and say, "Are you sure that's right? I think that date's wrong. Oh, the dates, yeah, and that sort of thing." And that's been an enormous pleasure. From
I
what I've seen, what I'm interested in, what I really want to see is I don't know how it's going to come across to players, and that is I started thinking again about what the relationship between Dom and Marcus is post Asfo, post Carlos being killed,
mhm,
because we all think Marcus and Dom, because the very first thing you see in the first game is Dom risking everything to get Marcus out of prison. So
mhm,
that's a relationship. But there's almost almost a supplicant sort of thing with Dom there. Dom's saying, "It's going to be cool." And Marcus is going, "Oh, really?" And, that sort of thing. And he's almost like he's playing the younger brother there. But it's what goes on in those previous years because the central sorry, this is me doing my fiction psychology thing. The defining relationship is Marcus and Carlos. That's Marcus's big trauma. Um, this is a guy, go back to the Marcus character because it's funny we're always talking about Gears, we never talk about Marcus because although he's central to it, he's not the only person that you've got to worry for and fret over. Um, he's why the nuts and bolts I was given right at the start was he's from a founding family. His dad is this hotshot, super duper scientist, monstrous great house, clearly some sort of semi aristocratic founding family, yada yada yada. Why does he talk like an ordinary squatty? And why does he befriend a working class lad? How does that happen? They wouldn't mix. And that's when the thing started for me about Marcus is desperately looking for a family because his own parents are like a mum is doing a thing. I mean, how does she get lost down the hollow? She's off doing she's got a small kid. Well, she's about 13 by then. She's been doing this for years. She's been going and doing her own thing. She's been doing her science projects. Um, Dad's away righting wrongs and building weapons of mass destruction for Marcus, but not now. Uh, he's desperate for a family, and I can't remember. I might be. I might be slightly changing something here that I've written, but I can't remember. Um, Marcus turns up at his junior school. He's 10 years old on his first day, sort of thing. And like all schools, people have got to test out the new kid, especially if he looks different. And immediately Carlos pitches in, and they've got each other's backs, and then Marcus pitches in to save Carlos. And that's where they click. And he's got a brother. He's got a brother, and it's Carlos. And he norms with Carlos.
Hmm.
He doesn't expect him to talk like a posh lad like he is. He becomes a working class lad because he wants so desperately to fit into his family, and he revels in it. He starts to come out of his shell, and Dom's around, but Dom's the relationship. The core of the relationship is Carlos. So Dom is by association with Carlos, Marcus's friend, but he's not. They are not equals. They're not equal friends. If you see, if you gave friend points, Dom would be probably about 7 or 8, and out of 10, and Carlos is like 12 out of 10. Marcus is very, very attached to Carlos, and Carlos to Marcus, and losing him like that, it's just. I mean, that the lad's already broken, but he's a lot more broken after that, and there's nothing he can do about it. He couldn't save him, and then he get all this stuff piles on because one of the things I could never get straight until the penny dropped for me. I used to have this conversation with Rod Ferguson. I said, "You've got Mr. Perfect, model soldier, loses it. Dex Hoffman takes the targeting laser, buggers off to his dad's house to save him, takes his squad with him, doesn't tell them, I mean, endangers them, takes a Raven and turns up, and it all goes to rats at that point." I said, "How do you square that?" "Oh, well," he said, it's a redemption story." I said, "Yeah, what makes him snap? Why does he do it?" And that's why I could backfill with this is you can see his trauma starting from 5 years old, that he is constantly waiting for people to come back. He's constantly losing people, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's where the concrete pour scene comes in. People know what I mean there. I can't read that now. I read it and it made me feel ill. I can't
Really?
believe I wrote that. Oh, it's yeah. I mean, it's horrific, and you can imagine what it does to him. Well, you see, because he goes
Yeah.
and punches the bulkhead, and nobody says a word. But
Well,
um,
I've got a
it just
before you keep going, Karen. Let me ask you something because you said something really interesting. And I kind of want to dive into it a little bit here. You know, something that I've said quite a bit on my YouTube channel um, is that Marcus and Dom, one of the things that has why I think this resonated so much with Gears of War fans, that being Gears of War E Day, is that they're going back to the roots, but they're going back to Marcus and Dom. And I've stated
yeah.
that I feel that Marcus and Dom are the heart and soul of Gears of War. But do you think that?
Um,
Are they the heart and soul, or is it Marcus and Carlos, or is it Delta Squad, or is it something totally different? Because when we think of, you know, other franchises out there, right? You think
yeah,
of like, you know, these the main characters a lot are you know, you think of the uh you think of Ellie and Joel in The Last of Us, you think of,
yeah.
you know, different characters. But my question, because you have an interesting point about Carlos. And so my question is like, is is the heart and soul really Marcus and Dom, or is it much bigger than that?
Um, I'm going to give an answer that is probably a writer's answer because I can't see it any other way. And everyone's got a different view as to who their favourite characters are. But in terms of the Marcus, Dom, Carlos thing, I think you've got an interesting dynamic. And I don't know. I'd just be interested to hear what people think when they've played E-Day and when they've seen all the cines and they work out what's happening. Is that initially, you imagine what happens after Asfo. Marcus has the last words Carlos says to Marcus is, "Look after Dom. Watch his back for him." That to Marcus is binding for life. He will die rather than let anything happen to Dom because Carlos asked him, and he likes Dom, but it's a Marcus Carlos thing. So when he's lost Carlos, and Dom's got kids, Dom's got uh, all sorts of problems to deal with. He's got a young family. The war's over. He doesn't, he's thinking what he's going to do next. And he's been separate. Remember, they're not. Um, Dom is in a commando battalion. Effectively, I'm sorry, I don't know about this. I didn't really work out the strength of the army, but they're all within 2-6 RTR. Sorry, I had to superimpose a sort of regimental structure on the whole Gears army for it to make sense to me, because that's my background, defence. So I had to do that. So they've not been together a lot. And I can imagine Marcus being at a real loose end, because he's trying. I've got to look after Dom, but where is Dom? What's Dom doing? And when there will come a point where they've got to work out their own relationship without Carlos. And I think that's going to be interesting, because Marcus has got two things. One, he has decided this is his vow. He's going to look after Dom, but he needs a family again. Nothing's gone away for him. He's lonely, he's lost. However strong he is, he's hurting. So he's going to try, and I think he's trying to get closer to Dom, because he's got to look after him. Does Dom hold him off a bit? Is Dom finding this difficult? Because he for a time he's going to see Marcus as his dead brother's mate. He isn't going to see him as his friend, however fond he is of him. He's got to adjust out of that Carlos Marcos double act, that the sort of bond that they had. So
Hmm.
that's going to be an interesting one. In terms of who's the heart of it, Delta is always, the whole squad's always going to be the heart of it. I
Mm.
don't think it's going to be. I think it would be quite sad and quite downbeat if you only had those two. You need the contrast of the Colbert axis, and this is what makes it for me is you've got Marcus, who's really a sort of supplicant, wanting to be let into the family, the Santiago family, and he's been made. I mean, the parents say, "You're one of us, you're family," and that matters to him like you wouldn't believe, because he's never going to get family with his dad, however much his dad wants to, and however much he wants to. There is an issue there, present but not involved, as I said. But then you've got this entirely separate relationship going on in the same squad between two blokes from a totally different regiment, who both come from fourth Iron Light Infantry. I think they're both in it by the time they join. This is a mixed squad. This isn't the same regiment. They are two different cat badges operating. Two from
Hmm.
26 RTI, two from 40 Irons. So there's gonna. But what you've got with Cole and Baird is extraordinarily a friendship of peers. They regard each other as equals who are the top of their game. Cole recognises that Baird is probably about the best engineer. Once Adam's got, probably better than Adam, and Baird recognises that Cole is not only an extraordinary sportsman, but someone who really has got his life sorted out. And they see each other as equals. I think it shifts a bit more between Carlos and Marcos initially. Sorry, between Dom and Marcos initially, is that they're trying to work out what that relationship is in the absence of Carlos. Whereas Cole and Baird, absolutely, they know exactly why they're both there. And the whole, I don't know if you've got the image for this, but there was something, when I say everything I need to know about Gears, I could see from the art, and I could see from the cines. There's one that really struck me when I first started, which was um, Delta have been swallowed up by some huge thing, and I can't remember what it was called,
The
but it's
rift
big enough for
worm.
them to.
The the
That's it, the
the
rift
rift
worm.
worm. Yeah.
That's it, big enough for them to get stuck inside and have to chainsaw and explode, and God knows what else to get out the side. And they're out to this, and you're into this cine where Marcus and Dom are info dumping in the foreground. There's guts and entrails and gibber everywhere, and in the background you've got um, Cole and Baird facing each other, picking bits off each other's armor. And I thought, that's a fascinating relationship going on in the background. These are two guys who, they do regard each other as peers.
Yeah.
And, you know, the bit, I mean, I thought, how did they meet? How does nice, easygoing Cole get on with Baird, who is quite a challenging character initially until you get to know him? In fact, a long time after you get to know him.
Right.
And you've got Cole makes a decision to save him from getting his head kicked in the toilet because of his father being a judge when they're in basic training. And he admires the fact that the guy won't back down. Baird will not back down. Baird will die trying. And he likes that. And He doesn't see anything more until he sees him across that airfield, and he's waiting. Everyone's loaded onto their Raven, and Baird stood back going, and Cole really feels for him and thinks the guy's got to come with us. And knowing he's surrounded by all these gears who can't stand Baird, they're saying, "Oh, you don't know that tosser, do you?" Whatever. And he makes a point. He calls him out, "Baird, come over here." And that's his signal to all these guys. This is my buddy. He's under my aegis. You do not touch him. And Baird's suddenly very aware of that, because what's the next thing you see? They land. They're poured into this mole. There's grubs coming out everywhere, and Cole fumbles his reload, and he's right in the face of some grub, and the grub goes down, and Cole realizes he's not firing. It's someone else behind him, and Baird is right behind him, literally has his back. They have both made that bargain there, and that's a
Hmm.
really interesting thing. Baird is not a lightweight character. Cole is not comic relief. These are two very serious blokes, and they've got the measure of each other, and they've decided, without really saying it to each other, they're going to watch each other's backs, and they have respect for each other. And that's see, without that, you've just got a really sad relationship that Dom and Marcus are trying to put together. You need all of them. Well, I need all of them. I mean, what the thing that makes Gears special also for me is it's not about superheroes. I cannot do superheroes. It's one of the reasons I sort of balked at Halo when they asked me to do stuff for them. I said, can I, if I've got to do a Spartan in there, then I'm going to do Spartan the way a journalist would do a Spartan. But can I do ODSTs? Because that's what I understand. I understand Marines. I understand elite small units and that sort of thing. Whereas there aren't any superheroes in Gears. They are what I really love doing best, and that is ordinary people, as ordinary as you can get if you're as rich as them. But they haven't got any special skills other than being big lads, and quite everything they bring to that to survive is about their backbone, their character, their spirit, their willingness to sacrifice, their willingness to look out for the guy next to them. And that to me is better than the superheroes. They don't need special skills. They have got guts and courage and love for their brother. And
Wow.
that's what keeps them going. And that's what appeals to me, is that they're ordinary blokes called upon to do extraordinary things, and in the end winning at enormous cost, enormous personal cost, shattered lives, but the human race carries on. And that to me is, I've had people say to me, it's a mindless shooter. No, it's not. It was never a mindless shooter. That it couldn't be. You've got people die, um, the whole planet's ripped apart. You haven't even really got an adversary, because it's an extraordinary thing. Who is the villain? Everyone's fighting. It's fair enough, but everyone's in the same position. The locusts are in the same position. They're being killed too. Um, it's there was a original level of complexity in there, which is absolute catnip for a writer. Well, certainly for me, because of the military and sort of geopolitical thing, but also the personalities involved. And it's about one thing I set out to do. Whatever I write, I don't set out to tell readers what to think. I just want them to think and reach their own conclusions. But I always insist on telling the truth about what it means to serve. And I think Gears
Hmm.
does that.
Wow, that was an unbelievable just the way that you broke that down was my god, that was impeccable. Guys, you guys are getting some, I mean, that was fucking awesome. I do have to ask
I,
this, Karen,
yeah,
as
yeah,
a follow-up to that, because
yeah,
we've got Gears of War E-Day coming, and,
yeah,
well, if we look at the timeline, and you had mentioned the coalition is they're sticking to, canon, they are locked in on this thing. My question is do we see Baird and Cole somewhere in Gears of War E-Day? Because, as you had mentioned, your thought process is, well, the heart and soul of Gears of War is Delta and like the camaraderie that they have. if we look at this, I mean, obviously they don't meet Cole and Bear, that being Marcus and Dom, until Gears of War 1. But could they
Yeah,
be
not
in
this
the
quite a
tac?
few years later.
Right. So could they be in the
Yeah.
TACCOMs? Could be. Could there be,
Um,
something wild that happens here? You know what I'm saying? Where, or uh, obviously, I mean, in a number, I'm just asking because it's like, could
yeah.
they give us an Easter egg or
No,
some crazy shit like that?
I understand why you're asking because it's a logical question. It really is. Um, and my answer is going to sound really weird, which is half of it is I don't know, and the other half is I can't say what I do know that might even clue me in. It's I just don't know. Um,
Yeah.
I just don't know. That's the best I can do. Sorry, I'm
Right.
not being
In
cagey. It's just that.
well, see, you have such a what I love about this is you have a love and a passion, it sounds like, for, I mean, just for Delta, like as a whole, like what they encompass together, like that
Yeah,
emphasis of winning together, even though like
yeah,
we're in the trenches, it sucks, but we're gonna push through it together
yeah,
as a unit, and we're gonna get through
yeah,
this thing. We're gonna save people, we're gonna lose people along the way, but we're gonna get, like, it's just like I said, like Gears of War to me is about pain and what pain does to good
yeah,
people, and what those good people coming together to
yeah,
go kill some grubs and like do some crazy shit. Um,
yeah,
my thought is that I feel like it'd be really interesting to see in Gears of War E Day, something kind of like a kudos to Delta in one way or another. Not like, obviously, if they're sticking to the canon, which they should, and I think you mentioning that, about the coalition and how they are so, I mean, obviously, getting you to consult on Gears of War E Day, that's a big W for Gears of War E Day. I mean, that is huge. And I will tell you, from playing the game, the and the way that the coalition responds to negativity in the community,
mm,
positivity, it's something that we like. It feels different. Everything feels
mm,
different. It just, in good ways. Like, they're just,
yeah,
they're innovating the franchise, and
mm,
so on and so forth. There's a bunch of different things that are amazing that they're doing, and not it's going to take people some time to get used to
mm,
some of the changes that they're making, but I feel like they are turning the page. They've realized what they did right, wrong, and what they need to do different moving forward,
yeah,
from when they
yeah,
started with Gears of War Ultimate Edition to Gears of War 4,
yeah,
and then Gears 5, and obviously we had Tactics and Gears Pop in there as well. But like, they've learned, it seems, what they did right and wrong,
yeah,
and what they need to do different moving forward.
yeah.
And I love this. And so my next question for you is, what do you think is the future of, let's just say, like, Gears of War, like, media as we know. We know we're getting, obviously, the game coming out here in October. We've got the
Uh-huh.
movie coming out from Netflix at some point or another. Apparently there's going to be an anime or something of that nature. I don't have a ton of information about that, but what do you think is the future of, like, do you think that they continue with the novels? Like, do you think that they continue onwards, even though you have kind of tackled a number of the different things here, in terms of the Gears timeline? Where do you think that leaves, like, more comics, more, future novels, things of that nature?
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm wary of extrapolating from past behaviour to future behaviour in the with
Yeah.
people. I get on very, very well with the coalition. That they're a good bunch. We have a lot of laughs. Yeah, and they really, really want Gears to work. They really, really want. They have really put a lot. It's actually, when you think, it's incredibly brave to say, okay, we're going to go back. We're going to go back. That takes guts. A lot of studios wouldn't dare do
Mm,
that. To say, look, we know what you want, we hear what you say, and we know there's lots of story meat that, whatever. Um,
yeah.
I don't know whether. honestly don't know where they can go for the future. It depends how well the game does, presumably. I will preface that. Sorry, I will say I literally know nothing. I did not look at it. Once I finished, you know what I'm like. Once I finish anything, even my own creative own stuff, that's it. I've got to move on to the next thing,
Yeah.
and I don't remember it. I didn't look at Gears after I left after the third game. Actually, I think the slab slightly overlapped it. So the very last thing I saw was would have been at the end of the slab. So I think I can't remember. They were very close run together as to whether I finished the book or the game first. So, um, and then I didn't look at it again. Partly because here's one of the things. I did not expect to be involved with Gears after um, I'd finished. Because one thing right from the start, it was such a remarkable coincidence of people, place, and time. It was like the alignment of planets. It was bloody weird. And something in me said, this is going to be a short but intense run. Soak it up, enjoy it for every second, because it
Mm.
ain't going to happen again in your lifetime or anyone else's. And that's how I felt about it. And it was extraordinary. I mean, to the extent, let's use the hive mind thing. I mentioned that before, and this is freaky, is that there were lots of instances where we ended up thinking the same things. And it's not just on the sort of story side. It was the way the artist saw it. And I mean, this probably speaks to the sort of cohesion of the original vision, Cliff's vision about what it would look like. Is that even though, I mean, and bear in mind that I come from an entirely different culture, class, and age group to most of these young lads, young American lads working on this game. So we've not even got any common cultural references, but somehow we saw the same thing. There was what I call Prescott's carpet. I actually found the image the other day. When I write Asphalt Fields, the way I write, I literally see where they are. There are no white rooms. I see everything in that room. It is like a video, and I can stop and zoom in my head. That's how powerful that art was, that I could extrapolate out from that in seconds and see what the buildings were like inside. Um,
Mm.
and Prescott's office, there's a scene where I do where Hoffman goes in to say, "Oh, well, this is today's cock up. This is what's gone wrong today. What are we going to, where can I get this, that, and the other? We're going to have to shut down this X, Y, and Z." And Prescott's there, and I imagine Prescott's office, and it was wood panelled. It was quite dark, and there was a carpet, a rug, big Oriental rug, which I think was. I might have this the wrong way round, but I saw a sort of Indian type pattern. Um, I didn't write that rug into the story. I needed to see it, but it didn't have to be there. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
didn't need it in the actual text. It was in my head. I knew what it looked like. That was enough. So if I ever needed to mention the rug, if Hoffman tripped over it, I knew what it looked like, Anyway, years later, this was years, remember, when I was working on 3 and I was talking to one of the artists. I was actually at Epic. I was in one of the artists' offices. And he said, "Oh, do you want to see what we've done with Prescott's office?" Now, he couldn't have known this because it didn't go in the book. But this picture flashed up, and I looked at this Prescott's office, yeah, and I said, carpet's, the rug's wrong. It isn't Chinese, it's Indian. And we looked at each other for a second, and it was weird because he had no way of knowing there was a rug at all, and what the rest of it was so identical to what I'd seen in my mind's eye and
Yeah.
he had seen the same thing, and I suddenly thought, there's just one detail different. This is like a hive mind, and it kept happening. It's like I needed to name one of the because for the first 3 games we didn't have any fixed wing aircraft. I was told to stay away from them. I sort of wrote. I had to retcon that to the reason that they all have helicopters, and it was a dodgy defence deal, which as we all know, those happen, don't we? Uh, so that's why there were helicopters. But I was trying to name some of the UIR aircraft, and I put Azura. And someone said to me, and they were reading it, because I'd send it in from time to time, people to read and catch up with what I was doing, and so they could say, "Don't do that, because we've got this." And one said, "Can you not call it Azure?" I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, 'cause that's what we're calling the Mystery Islands, the Bunker Island." And it was like, that's such an unusual word, yet we both thought of it, and it just kept happening over and over and over again that we were. the way I describe this to people, I think I'm nuts. Now, knowing what a sort of boringly robotic, rational person I am, they think she's been she's been on the ale again. Um, it was like we had all lived there once for real and had forgotten it, and we were gradually remembering it and comparing it and saying, "Yeah, do you remember that?" And it was so freaky. And I sat there in this meeting once when that was happening, thinking, the brain is an astonishing thing. This isn't telepathy or anything. There's something the brain does with pattern recognition that we're all recognizing a similar pattern. I don't know how we do it, but it's happening and it's real, and I've never worked it out. So if there's any cognitive scientists listening who can explain this to me, I'd really appreciate it, because it freaked me out for a long time. But we had the same vision. We literally the same things we saw, and just extraordinary.
Wow. Well,
Now that's you're never gonna top that experience.
yeah,
And I didn't think. I thought that's it. I'm done. And I didn't look at 4, 5, and 6. And I had fans, because they regularly email me, people going and making comments. Let's just leave it at that. And I thought, no, 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 no. I can't hear this. I can't hear this. And I just tried not to hear it. So I have blocked it out of my brain now. I blocked what happened between here, in terms of the issue of the games. Uh, Although obviously Andrew's filled me on the stuff that I need to know,
yeah.
that they've done. Uh, I That didn't happen for me. That's the only way I can deal with it.
Well,
That's the only way I can deal with it. That sounds pathetic, but it's true, because
no,
I have absolutely spilled my guts there.
right, right. Oh, of course. Yeah, you have absolutely you put your heart and
Yeah,
soul into Gears of War
yeah,
when you did.
yeah,
And
yeah. I would say that, as I say, uh, the coalition, they 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 really do get it. They do get it. They honestly do. And
that's
things
amazing.
have moved on technically. There's more that you can do now. I mean, I was saying to you earlier about textures. I can't believe how hair textures have changed since the last time I saw them done. It's it's a totally. There's so much more that you can do visually. Uh, I think the imagery is, certainly the characters look fantastic on the Cines. I like that.
Oh, they do. And
Uh,
well, you and
yeah.
you had mentioned something that was really, I think, really powerful. You kind of had mentioned, enjoying the moment, because
Mm,
it might end. It might may be over. And I've stated this quite a bit, Karen, that I'm treating Gears of War E-Day like this is it. Like this could be the last Gears of War game we ever get. And I want to put every ounce of energy
mm,
into this. Like, I don't, even though like talking about the future is awesome. And there's one of the things that we've talked so much at nauseum about
yeah,
on the Gears cast about the future of Gears of War after E-Day. And
yeah,
Gears of War E-Day is going to cover 3 days in the city of
yeah,
Kelowna. And
absolutely, yeah,
Gears
yeah,
of War 1 doesn't happen for 14 years after that. And so it's
yeah,
like, well,
absolutely,
you
yeah.
have 14 years to work with.
Oh
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
the the thought
Plenty of
is
story space,
w-
absolutely.
right, we could get a Gears of War E-Day trilogy, but the way I think about it is I say to myself, I want the coalition to just focus on this one, because if you crush it on this one, then
Yeah,
we'll get another one. And so the way I look at it is, in my mind, I tell people, enjoy these moments. Enjoy the beta this weekend, guys. Enjoy the moments now, the late nights with the boys, with the girls, whatever. Like,
yeah,
enjoy that, because it may, I mean, think about this, Karen. Since Gears 5, as a fan base, I mean, I, it's been 7 years. It's like it's
yeah.
been a long
Gosh, is
time
it?
for us,
Oh, blimey. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine.
and so
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't realised it was that long. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say, but um,
it's been,
I mean,
yeah,
the only thing I
it's
can
been a long
say
time
is
since we got the last, the
sure.
last entry in the from a video
Yeah,
game perspective and all of that. And so, but the way I look at it is, it, the coalition, at least what I've played so far, it seems like it has been worth every second of the wait. And so I'm really
yeah,
excited for the full game to come out. And I love that you had, I love that you had mentioned about just, enjoying the moments and all of that. That
yeah.
it's so huge. I got two more questions for you, Karen, because I know we've been
Yeah.
going on here, and it's absolutely
I
awesome. And
know, I
I
know.
I really, really
I told you I
appreciate.
rambled, didn't I? I
Oh,
told you
no,
I
no, no.
rambled. I
I
brought
do.
it.
I think that you gave people a ton of knowledge, a ton of things.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Yeah,
incredible.
I mean, remember, this is only my perspective on it. I mean, you know, for all, there may well be people going, "Well, she's off her trolley. What's going on about?" I mean, one of the
No.
things. Oh, what all I will say about the game though is, you know, just remember, um, if the if you if you love it, order it, buy it, and this is a business. Remember, you know, this is how you get more things is by supporting the thing that you want more of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I'm not on a commission basis for the game or anything, but you know, I've got very high hopes for it. I know it was. I know the coalition has gone into it in absolutely the right spirit. Um,
Yeah. That. Well, I
and
mean, that's
yeah,
all. That's all. That's all.
as I
That's
say,
all
they
we.
are brave. They have decided to say we're going to go back and do it and pick up again, and that takes guts
It
and that
does.
takes commitment.
Oh, 100%. Um, I want to ask you this. There's probably somewhere out there, someone out there is watching this live or is watching this as a
Uh,
VOD who is someone who's like, man, I really want to create novels one day, or I would love to be, the next Karen Travis. What would be your advice for the next generation of writers that are coming in, Karen, in terms of from novels, from whether it's processes, procedures, or whether just advice that you have for
mm,
in an ever-changing world, in an ever-changing
yeah,
landscape of writing. What would be some
yeah.
advice that you would give someone who's maybe just starting out or is trying to make it right now?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head about the ever-changing landscape because nobody could have foreseen. Well, certainly the big publishers didn't foresee how much disruption Amazon was going to cause by allowing distribution of self-published books. Um, and some people, you know, some people have made an enormous amount of money out of that. They've done very well. I've got, you know, friends who've done very well, and uh, they're giving people what they want, a much more granular level of interest area, because it's the stuff that publishers said was not big enough audience. There's certainly a big enough readership for some very niche stuff. So I throw this in because it's the thing that made my mind boggle. I did not know that there was a substantial audience. Remember, if you're an indie writer, I go into the difference between indie and trad. See, this is actually becomes a 5-hour lecture. This is like the Reef lecture on becoming a writer. So I try and keep it short.
Yeah.
Um, of if you're an indie, because you keep so much more of your money, so much more. Believe me, it's a massive motivation. You can afford to sell smaller numbers, so you can afford to target a smaller audience. And there is such a thing as quilting, cozy, cozy quilting mysteries and things like that. The subgenres. I mean, people know exactly what they want now, readers, and they want to read, for example, something about. They only want to read fiction set in Scotland in the 1700s, uh, romances, and they'll be very specific. And there's got to be a dog in it. And because of AI searches, they can now find that book. They can now find that. But now, I'm obviously very, very prejudiced about AI, having been part of the class action against Anthropic, and basically nearly every single one of my books was ripped off by one AI company or another. But that being the case, and damages being awarded, um, AI for searches, it's the ultimate search engine. So you will have readers, and if you've got something you really want to write and you think a big publisher's never going to want to publish that, or they will tell you now there's no call for that, or they won't even reply at all. Do not, you know, bear in mind you've got two routes now. The gatekeepers, they can't keep that gate any longer. You can go indie. Now, Trad Pub, I'm the worst person to talk to about how to get into Trad Pub. You've heard how I got in. People, I no, I don't know anyone else who's done it quite the way I have, and it was like I didn't even intend to. You know, and people, I didn't have it easy in the sense, but I didn't have the barriers that most other people had. I never had to had to write query letters. I never had to beg for an agent. I don't have an agent now. I've actually got a lawyer. They're much more use. I tell you. So I'm not the best person in the world to ask about someone who wants to go into trad pub, sorry, traditional publishing. You know, where you sell the book to a publisher, and they give you an advance or not. Sometimes they only give you royalties, and then you rely on them to do everything else. And they don't do everything else because you're going to have to do your own promotion. So that might fit. It depends on your personality. If you're not someone who can sit down and do business negotiations and manage freelancers to do stuff for you, you might find being an indie very, very hard. If you can do it, the sky's the limit. You can publish what you want when you want. You're not stuck to any schedule. You're not stuck to this business of waiting 2 years' time for the next season, which is what happens with Trad Pub. You can have the artist you want, the editor you want, the layout designer you want. You can do anything you want, and you can publish that pretty well as soon as you've finished, and you can start earning money, and you see what you're earning right away. The price is that you're doing an awful lot of work, so you've got to be willing to do both. I admit I'm lazy about marketing and advertising. I don't do any. I'm relying on my name that I've got from previous series. Unfortunately, the sort of momentum has kept up long enough to stop me starving. Um, so you can do that if you're someone who doesn't like banging tables and firing freelancers for failing to do the artwork 2 days before the book's due out. Notice my specificity there, which I did once. Then you have to slog it out with Trad Pub, and the money's far less. I mean, it's actually you get less in terms of an advance now than I did 20 odd years ago, and that wasn't big money. Um, Depends what you want to do. I would always say to people, at least look at indie, but uh, there are loads of resources out there to do it. And the first thing I'd say to you though is, when you think about your writing career, do you say to yourself, I want to write, or do you say I want to be a writer?
Mm.
Because that's the psychology of that with a lot of people tells them exactly what sort of existence they're going to have. Because if you want to write, then you know that you're doing a job. But the identity of a writer can be very, very dangerous for you psychologically. If you think, I want to be a writer, well, why? I mean, whoever said it was like having homework for the rest of your life was right. Um, it's You've got to be prepared for the fact that, and I did a complete newsletter on this because a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I think, the bookseller, one of the trade mags in the UK, did this big survey of debut authors getting their first book out. People who had gone through the mill, had finally got their author badge, a publisher, and had published their book. And they were checking how they felt about the process and how they felt about the publisher. More than half the respondents, and bear in mind this is a relatively small sample because there ain't that many debut authors in the world. It's not like you're not going to find 15,000 of them to ask. More than 50% said it had given them lasting mental health problems. Now,
Mm.
even allowing for the fact that now everybody thinks that every setback in life is a mental health problem, that's still incredibly high. And if I was a manager, I would be getting HR in and saying, what the hell's happening here? And when they started describing, and they were brave to stick their heads above the parapet, even though this is an anonymous survey, the things they were saying would be familiar to any author of my age. They're all going, oh, yeah, oh, they ain't seen nothing yet, but yes, that happens. They were just treated abominably. And they articulated how abominably they were treated and tossed aside and all this sort of thing. And they had to do everything for themselves. And the publisher, treated them really badly, was dishonest with them. And there's lots of different publishers, small and large. And a lot of people felt wounded, I think, because it was an ambition to be a writer, and their personality was so tied up with the status of that for a given value of status. It's like, I want to be. They want to be able to say they're a writer. It's who they think they are. See, I don't think I would describe myself as a writer, but if someone said you can't write anymore, there's a ban on it, I'll go, all right, I'll go off and start a brewery then, sake brewery. I can do that, and I wouldn't feel I'd lost anything. But for them, they felt no, seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what I
I
do,
love
by the
I
way.
love that
I've just
mindset.
started a sake brewery.
Yeah.
um, because I'm a journalist, and journalists think that way. Uh, we're not easily wounded, but also we don't pin our entire existence and reputation and sense of self-worth on being considered a writer. So I did quite a lot in this newsletter. If anyone's interested, if you go to my website there and look through the menu, you can find the archive and you can go back through those. And there's lots of this stuff in there. And I've known people wrecked by publishing. I mean, really wrecked. I mean, bad decisions made by editors, some shockers with really experienced writers, and have just really destroyed their careers practically. And you've got to be prepared for that with TradPub. Now, I'm not saying that you won't have bad experiences as an indie, but you're not going to get someone basically sabotaging you through either incompetent. I mean, to be fair, I mean, your primary relationship is with the editor. And editors come in all shapes and sizes. There are nice editors. There are editors who love reading. They're the best. They tend to be the ones they fire first, unfortunately. There are editors who wanted to be writers, thought they'd have a better chance if they were an editor. Didn't work. Not very kind to writers who've got what they think they should have. It should be me up there, that sort of thing. As in any industry, there are a lot of nice people, and there's a core of sociopaths, dingbats, snake oil salesmen, and general undesirables. It's going to happen in every walk of life. Um, and you've got to be able to deal with that. And they can be very destructive. And if you start to think of yourself as all that matters is I am a writer, you are setting yourself up to be wounded. Showbiz, I mean, I always think of writing novels is the slow, quiet end of showbiz. The same things happen,
Mm.
the same power dynamics go on, but much more slowly, and for far less money than the same movies or music. But there are more people who want to do it and get paid for it than there are opportunities for them to do it, at least for companies. And you will always be, as I say, the supplicant, the person begging. And then you have the gatekeepers, many of whom are poorly paid and not very happy with their job. And then you get sorry, I was going to say something that I dare not say to an American audience about because I want to be let through airports without problems in the future. People who are poorly paid but with a lot of power can behave very badly when they feel they've got that power. And you can be subject to that. So arm yourself with, I am not my job. I love writing, blah blah blah. But if someone turns me down, I'm still me. I've still got it. I can still write another book, and then you can go off and be an indie because there's nobody gatekeeping there. I mean, it's still as competitive, and the problem is discovery, getting your book discovered. But I never give people advice on writing. You either can or you can't. You can improve what you've already got, but I don't think you can learn to write from scratch. People who tell, so this is random stuff. Now you're not going to believe this. It's a shame I haven't got the camera, because I actually did a business card sized piece of note, and everything you need to know about writing a book is on this back and front, and it's business card size. That's how basic and simple it is. I mean, it's written very small, so I can't tell you about writing other than um, don't let anyone tell you there's one way to do it. There's hundreds of ways. It's what works for you. People who say about, oh no, you've got to have this method or this software. No, just try out everything. And the most advice you could ever have that you could believe is someone saying, I don't know if this will work for you, but this is what worked for me. Maybe there's something in there. And that's all I say to people. Um, uh, don't read reviews. I have never read a review of one of my books.
Mm.
Never.
Wow.
Now, because I used to be a journalist, and I used to do reviews of other things, movies and things way back, and I know some of the mindset that goes with, you just want something people are going to read, and it's much easier to tear down than it is to build up. But I never read reviews, and people are horrified. I don't even know what my star rating is on Amazon for any of my books. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how detached I am from it, because even if I read them and I had data from it, I couldn't make use of it. I can only write one way. This is my method. Can't change it for anybody. Buy it or don't buy it. That's my attitude to it. And that sounds awful, but that's what's kept me sane, because
Yeah.
writing can make you very, very unhappy, and it's an isolating job because you've got to do it on your own. And
I love your mindset, by the way. I
I'm not
actually
evil,
love it.
really. I'm just realistic.
No, I tell people, just ignore the noise. Like, sometimes you got to
Yeah,
ignore, like, if you want to
yeah,
be, people ask me, what does it take to, start a YouTube channel, or, do YouTube or whatever. I mean, a lot of it is just, be yourself, and you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Just do it.
And ignore the noise, because you're going to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
positivity, but you're going to really look at the negativity more than the positivity. It might just be
absolutely.
one negative comment on YouTube, and it ruins your whole day. No, dude, move on. It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all about, like, just believe in yourself, and at least that's for
absolutely.
me
Yeah,
with when it comes to
absolutely.
YouTube. Yeah, I but
Absolutely. yeah, definitely do your own thing. Don't compare yourself with other writers or other YouTubers. You are you. You can produce a unique product. And there's an audience out there for everybody now because everybody can get at you. There's nobody saying, well, we're only going to publish 20 books in this particular month. Doesn't happen. We're only going to do one bit of YouTube. You've got infinite possibilities for the time being. Um, sorry, I'm looking at my little list here in my dim light. Advice to don't read reviews. Be yourself. More than a waste to skin a cat. I mean that's by Star Wise. Uh, oh, contracts. This is totally random. If you think you're safe with the contract, and you signed a contract, and your agent's been through it, or your lawyer's been through it, and you're happy with it, uh, and you think that's it, I've got a contract. Your contract is only as good as your ability to pay to enforce it in court if the other side breaches, because that happens. And they know that.
Hmm.
You should know that. It happens with games, I'm told, as well, with game studios as well. They've got lawyers that are already paid for. You will have to mortgage your house. They can wait you out. They can take, yeah. So your contract is dependent on you being able to afford a lawyer that can take on their lawyers. Think about that carefully. I mean, I still say get a really serious. I mean, a lot of agents, I'm afraid, they're not legally qualified. I've known agents, I've had agents that have given me not very good advice. Um, I've got an attorney. She's so expensive I can't use her. No, I mean, I was billed 2009. I was billed $800 or $900 for an email. But
Wow.
when she wins big. But anyway,
Right.
this is a publisher who breached the contract with me and all that. Um, just bear that in mind that you are not protected from that, which is another reason why I think indie, if you can do the extra work and you're willing to do the marketing and all that, I know indies, I see them all the time. Their marketing and PR and the way they reach their audiences is better than you could buy in most agencies. They are phenomenal at it. If they weren't writing, they could go and set up an ad agency or a marketing agency. They're that good. They know their market. They know all about different ways of testing. I'm astonished. I don't have time for that because I'm getting too old now, and I know, I admit it. I mean, I could sell a lot more if I actually pulled my finger out and did some marketing and all that. But I'm just coming to the end of the career. I mean, I must be slowing down now. I am much older than people think, and I just haven't got the enthusiasm for it yet. I mean, maybe I will in a week's time or something. But right now, I'm thinking, no, I can coast along on my name a bit longer. But I just say beware contracts. Sorry, I'm just looking through my list of things. Uh, oh yeah, remind me before we part company, Fred.
Yeah, yeah, I
Remember.
will. I
So
wanna I wanted really quick because you had mentioned that you like, you know, you've had such a extensive, incredible career. Um, w one of my last questions here, what's next for you? Like, is there what are you working on now? Are you working like, because it sounds like this is more of a love of the game than really for you, like, in terms of crafting from the novels and everything that you've done up to this point. Like, I know you said that it kind of something keeps you going and keeps you
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
you like, whether it's you're hungry for more or whatever it might be. Like, what's
Yeah.
next for you, Karen?
Um, I could probably actually tell you. Just want to finish off something that one last bit of advice for people who
Sure.
want to write.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, sorry, hang on. I'm just reading this piece of paper. It seems quite important. Blah, blah, blah. Um, the best training for writing is not a fine arts, a creative writing degree or English literature. And you do not need that. Go out and live. Look at people like Steinbeck. He didn't. You look at all these. You look at all the greats, and they've gone out and lived life. You are better off mixing with people, hearing stories from people, mixing with all kinds of people. That's how you build dialogue. The most important skill for a writer is listening to people, hearing what bothers them, understanding what resonates with them, how they use language, um, the real crises they face. Get out and live. Uh, don't do it in English literature. I mean, I don't know. I could be really rude about it because there is a meme that you've probably seen about what the English literature teacher says, and what the writer meant, and it involves curtains,
You're
and it's
right.
got F words in it. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's the F bomb one. I think you all know. The teacher says that the curtains were blue to indicate, because the writer means that he's incredibly depressed, and the writer says the curtains were blue, and that's exactly it. So just don't get into that. People, real people, interesting people, listen to them, mix with them, understand them, and that's one of the head starts that a journalist has. Uh, but if you must do a college degree, and you're going to spend that money, get something that will be a secondary job for you. Um,
Hmm.
get a proper job that qualify in something that's not writing. Not only because it's really handy when you're trying to make ends meet, but because it makes you a different sort of person. You learn more. You've got another area of expertise which you can bring to bear on what you write. So, and also, if I had my time again, I would not write full time. It's too isolating. I wish I'd kept it part time and spent the other time, I don't know, because I do miss being in a big office with a load of people, and it's been like solitary confinement for 20 odd years. That was honest. I wouldn't do it again. But it does, however, segue nicely into what I see for the future. What keeps me writing? Readers.
Hmm.
I started out writing, as you know, because I needed to replace the salary. And must have been about 18 months ago now, some fans who live locally, long story short, we decided to meet up and have coffee. So we had coffee. And I realised why I really was doing it. And that's because the readers who stay in touch with me, some of them become really good friends. Uh, I have the best readers on the planet. Many, of course, are military. They're either veterans or serving. Um, I've had extraordinary conversations with them. I am humbled by the honesty with which people will tell me what's happened in their lives and how they use books to get through it. Now, that's an accidental thing that I do. I don't know they're out there, and that they need this. They need to work it through using the book, but they do the hard work. But when people say, sounds awful. Um, I am just great. This does sound bloody awful. I
No,
assure you,
no.
this is absolutely genuinely meant. I am grateful for this God-given talent that it's actually useful for people who really, really need it. And I didn't realize that was going to be such a powerful motivator for me. Now, I just write stories, and I try to write them honestly about what people go through. I have spoken to people, and one is a very good friend now who've been through the worst experiences you can imagine in their lives. And the books have been an escape. Or they've they've enabled them to see something that they can use through their own hard work to work through what's happening to them. And I'm not gonna I am the typical hard nosed, quite bitchy, nasty journalist still deep down. But some of the things that people tell me, I have sat here at 3 o'clock in the morning reading my email and going through, and they've reduced me to tears. One, because they've suffered so much, and I think, how does anyone even get up and draw the next breath after that? How do you keep going? I really take my hat off to them, but also because they're so nice to me, and I didn't seek them out and help them. They saw something and helped. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and now they're being nice to me by validating what I don't feel is a real job. I come from a working class background, and writers, we just write. We're not building anything. We're not feeding anyone. Uh, we take no risks really. Nobody makes you write. It's not the only job in your grim industrial village, where you've got to, the only job is working down the mine. No one holds a gun to your head and makes you do it. We've got no right to bitch about how hard it is. When some people have jobs where they don't even know if they're going to be alive the next day.
Hmm.
And I think just having that constant contact with readers, and I do make myself accessible to them, has made me realise that I can, even in this feeble little way that writers do something useful that better people will make a use of. And I particularly feel that obligation to my military readers to keep on telling the truth about the way their lives are. I mean, regardless of the technology and if it's on a different planet, basic soldiering hasn't changed. And that's what keeps me going. Is apart from that, I have to finish things that I start. I'm quite pathological about that. I've got now. I've started a series. I've got to finish it. I can't. Um, I mean, wherever I can finish it, which of course is the other thing with working for Trad Pub, especially on franchise work, is you can have the rug pulled at any time for any sorts of reasons. So now I've got control over what I write. Um, I want to carry on doing it for my readers because they actually matter to me. they they are a community out there, and they really lift me up most days. I think it's brilliant.
That's
In
awesome.
terms of what I'm doing in the future, I mean, I'm still writing 2 series. One of them's running very, very late, and I mean, if you think E-Days have been a big, there's been a big gap between E-Day and the last Gears game. Uh, between books 2 and 3 in my Ringer series, it's been 8 years so far. So I've got to get back to that because I've been reminded of that quite forcibly by some readers. And I'm still doing the Nomad series, and I've got those sort of planned out as far as I plan anyway, allowing for the version to about 9. I don't know what else. I mean, obviously got to carry on with those because now I've started. I've got to know what happens. I don't know what happens with some of these stories. I really don't.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it would be nice to do. It would be nice to do more games work, but who knows? Who knows? I really don't know.
Well, I wanna, but before we get to Fred, um, I've got one question that I've been wondering, and I don't know if you can answer it or where your mindset is, but I've tried to understand. You mentioned earlier about the hollow, and I want to go
Yeah,
back to the hollow really quick because my question to you
yeah.
is it's kind of a simple question, but I've been trying to figure out like was the hollow created by the locusts or was it already there?
Um, my understanding of it, and I could be horribly wrong, and Andrew will tell me at some point. I'm sure. I always understood that it was a natural
Okay.
formation, and
Okay.
they've just been modifying it and building it out.
Because I was, yeah, because if it was the locusts that built it, my thought, you can imagine, well, these, the locusts work like it's like their minds connect. And when they are
Yeah,
determined to
yeah,
complete something, whatever it might be, the hollow or whatever,
yeah.
they will be relentlessly doing that until,
Yes,
you know what I mean? And so anyways,
yes. That's
I
how I
wanted
saw
to
it. I mean,
ask you, I wanted to ask you that question. That was just a question I had because the mind that your mind and you're like so tapped into Gears of War. I was like, the hollow is something that's so talked about, and it's like, was it just there, or did the locust actually create it? So, anyways, I thought it was just fascinating.
yeah. No, I mean, there is a bit of backstory to that, but I don't know whether it's public. I mean, we are going back a long way. There is a bit of backstory to that, but I look at it, try and look at it from a sort of logistics point of view. If they're going to do a simultaneous attack all over the planet, they've got to have a hell of a network, and it won't all be natural. So they've got to connect things. I think they utilize space. That's the way I saw it. I could be horribly wrong. Please don't take this as absolute gospel. I do not, I do not set canon or anything now, but that would be my take on it. It's the only, because I have to operate in the real world. It's how many years they've spent making those tunnels because they do attack on the same day, and it's all over Sarah.
Hmm.
So they're not going to do that by accident. But
Right.
I think they would utilize the same way they utilize the existing life forms to modify them to make reavers and polyps and all this sort of thing, tickers and all that. They must have started out with animals somewhere and they've modified. I think they just modify the world they live in even more than we do.
Yeah, that's
Does that make
fascinating.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Certainly the simultaneous attack, because there is no land advance for once they're up out of the ground, you are screwed. You
Right.
don't see them coming miles off; they're just there, and that's a great, sort of Rattenkrieg, to use the World War II term. Is you don't want to go down there fighting in tunnels either, but people end up fighting in tunnels. It's the worst possible place to fight. It's fascinating from a sort of military point of view.
Yeah,
They are fascinating creatures.
they are. Yeah, for
You've got to
sure.
feel sorry for them as well, but I would kill one as soon as look at one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is the thing: you can see the other guy's point of view, but that doesn't mean that you don't shoot him when when he's going to rip your head off. It's
Right.
vicious but fair. That's me.
Oh man, this has been so cool, Karen. So your story about Fred.
Got to say this about Fred, and I'm sure Fred won't mind me telling. Yeah, this is just the awesomeness of Fred Tattershore. Um, before we started recording one day, the producer at Technicolor, nice chap, said, "Fred, could you do us a favour? One of, now, I think I've got the details right with this, but you know, obviously I might have forgotten some of it. But he said to his friend, "Could you record a sort of good luck message to a friend of mine who's going for a big interview? Could you just do it for him?" Yeah, Fred, lovely bloke, very obliging, and he said, "Yeah, sure." And he stopped. He stopped and he thought for a few seconds, and he goes to the mic because he's in the booth. You know, there's this big booth, and you're like a sort of console, almost like a gallery, but it's on the same level. You know, sort of gallery showing TV, but yeah, you can see them obviously the other side of the glass. And he goes to the mic, and he starts doing all these different voices as if it's an answer phone message of all these different characters leaving good luck messages. And he's doing the bleeps, and he's doing these voices. And they're every age, every gender, every nationality. Hulk, I think he does Hulk. And I'm watching this slack jawed. And then he even does a vocoder effect without anything, you know, without any electronic enhancement. He does a vocoder effect. And I am just sat there like a dog being shown a card trick. You know, I swear my head must have been on one side. Thinking,
Wow.
where's that sound coming from? Humans can't do that. And it was funny, and it was perfect, and he did it in one take. And
Really?
I'm glad I was physically there to witness it. It was the greatest versatility of voice artistry I have ever experienced, seen. And if someone had described it to me, I would have thought, yeah, it wasn't like that. Yes, it was. It was brilliant. And he's a lovely guy. And he very kindly did me a Baird answer phone as well. So I've got a Baird answer phone message, voicemail message somewhere that I haven't installed on my new system, but I might put it on. It's very old now, but
Wow. That is
he's a
awesome. That
great
would have
guy.
been cool to be there.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want to thank all of you for joining Karen and myself. For this episode of the Gears Cast. Guys, by the way, I'm going to put all of Karen's links in the description down below so you guys can go to her website, can reach out to her on X. And Karen, you know, as first and foremost, thank you again for everything that you have done for Gears of War, and still being, you know, a part of this thing. I mean, just coming onto the Gears Cast and coming on to podcasts like with different, you know, YouTubers or Twitch streamers or, you know, whatever, it is amazing. And it's definitely, I do not take it for granted. I don't take you for granted. As we are on this beta weekend and we are getting closer and closer to the launch of Gears of War E-Day, that being October 1st, or October 6th.
I
Um,
didn't know that, so
yeah, yeah.
I obviously missed that information. No,
What,
seriously, I probably did. I probably did.
yeah. What would, you know, with our you know, just final thoughts and everything else, what do you got for the Gears of War community? As we are, you've given so many incredible nuggets throughout the course of this podcast, but what would you give the Gears of War community as we are, in the thick of it with the beta and number of months away now from Gears of War E-Day coming out? And any final thoughts?
Um, I would say buy it, please, because if you absolutely love something, support it.
Yep.
And it's an incredibly simple message, but there's no point saying, oh well, why aren't there games? Where there is money, companies will respond. I can assure you. If they're absolutely, if you're buying it, if you're enjoying it, if you're saying you're enjoying it, if you're getting all your friends to buy it, that is terrific. Note that I said buy the game before I even said and buy my books and keep me fed. But I mean, I, I don't get any royalties off the Gears books. But I would still say, even though I don't make a penny of it, you can buy the Gears books too. But definitely, please support the game. I think you're going to be happy with it. From what I've seen, the reason I'm cagey is because I haven't seen the bits for so long, and I don't know what changes, and I know a lot changes. Um, so, and just remember that, well, look what's happening to other games. A lot of games have gone by the wayside and are having a very hard time, but Gears has come back in its old form. I think you should, you know, that's something to really get behind, and it would make an old woman very happy. That old woman being me. Um, it really is a pleasure, and I mean it's a pleasure to talk to people about Gears. And you are all the best fans out there. You know this. Gears is the only IP I would ever come back and do this for. I love it for different reasons to you probably, but I love it as much as you do, and I want the best for it, and I want you all to really enjoy it. And for goodness sake, stay in touch. I'm always happy to hear from you. We are a community. Uh,
100%.
Absolutely. So I'm really grateful for the time you've indulged my endless stories, because I really can rabbit on, but then I don't talk much during the course of work, so I save up a lot of words and they've got to come out.
Well, I've learned a lot from you just by this, talking to you the last few hours here. And once again, I'm very grateful for you, and we will definitely, I will definitely be keeping in touch with you for sure. I definitely pick your brain about some stuff, and you're
Yeah,
right.
sure.
We're all in this together, guys. Gears
Absolutely.
of War is a community unlike any on planet Earth, and I'm very excited about the future of Gears of War, and what we have right now, that being the beta, and as we're getting closer to launch day and everything else. Enjoy every moment, enjoy every lobby, every game of Horde Siege, every match of verses, the campaign when that launches with the game. It's going to be something that we're going to be talking about for years. And we're going to be talking about these moments right now, the days leading up to it. Um, I'm very grateful for all of you for checking out this episode of the Gears Cast. Once again, guys, go down into the description down below. Check out Karen's website, everything she's doing. Support Karen, and say thank you to her for what she did for us and the Gears of War community. I appreciate all of you. Love all of you very much. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the Gears Cast, make sure that you leave a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Stay positive. Just keep grinding. And as always, I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.